Chapter 421, 42% Amplification. After all, any one of the cultivation methods within the memories of the rebirth martial emperor was a first-rate treasure in the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. Duan Lingtian was sure that Zhao Lin, Zhao Yu, and the other Zhao clan members wouldn't have the slightest resistance when facing this cultivation method. Zhao Lin, didn't you always want the Muscle Meridian Rebirth Scroll in my possession? Since you want it so much, then I'll make one for you. A cold light flashed within Duan Lingtian's eyes when he thought about Zhao Lin. Whoosh! Suddenly Duan Lingtian stood up and looked at the trembling middle-aged man that stood at the side and said indifferently, "Take this cultivation method and pass it to Zhao Yu, just say you got it from killing me. In this way, you don't have to offend that Zhao Yu." The middle-aged man was slightly hesitant and his eyes contained doubt. After all, he saw this young man wield a brush energetically and write this cultivation method with his own two eyes. Would a cultivation method written by a young man be able to deceive that sly old fox, Zhao Yu? He was extremely doubtful in his heart. What? Worried it would be see-through by Zhao Yu? Duan Lingtian glanced indifferently at the middle-aged man, then passed the Muscle Meridian Rebirth Scroll over. "Read through it yourself." The middle-aged man took a deep breath and received the Muscle Meridian Rebirth Scroll before reading it. In next to no time, the middle-aged man's attention was completely captivated by the cultivation method and he'd become completely infatuated with the first half of the cultivation method. Time silently flowed by. After 15 minutes passed, the middle-aged man had only seen the beginning of the first half and he'd already taken Duan Lingtian to be a godly figure. "This cultivation method, you really want me to give it to Zhao Yu?" The middle-aged man felt extremely surprised. He was able to discern that this cultivation method was extremely valuable, to the extent that even he was tempted by it. But now, this young man actually wanted to give this cultivation method to Zhao Yu, the person that wanted to kill the young man. He couldn't wrap his head around it. Duan Lingtian glanced indifferently at the middle-aged man then said, "Just do as you're told, don't ask what you shouldn't ask, little gold, follow him over. Kill him if he dares play any tricks." Squeak squeak, the little gold mouse nodded excitedly, and flowing lights revolved around the grade 6 spirit sword in her hand, as if it was ready to be sent into the middle-aged man's throat at any moment. The middle-aged man's face went ghastly pale, and he understood in his heart that if he didn't want to die, then he could only do as the young man said. Otherwise, he would die without a doubt. He'd already planned that after he gave this cultivation method to Zhao Yu, he'd leave the ancient city of Everlast and put some distance between himself and this place where trouble might come looking for him. He kept having the feeling that the cultivation method in his hand was completely different from what it seemed to be. Although he wasn't familiar with this young man, but he could perceive that it was impossible for the young man to be so kind. Zhao Yu was a person who wanted to kill the young man. He'd asked himself, if it was him in the young man's place, it would be impossible for him to act like the young man. When the middle-aged man left, he said to himself, he's surely done something to this cultivation method. Duan Lingtian sent the middle-aged man off with his eyes, then withdrew a pile of weapons refinement materials while waiting within an inn, as he intended to refine a weapon. "I left in a hurry the last time and wasn't in time to refine a grade 6 spirit sword for myself and the two little girls. I'll first refine one for myself. I'll refine spirit swords for the two little girls when I have time in the future." Duan Lingtian commanded in his heart, and with a flip of his palm, a strand of green flame jumped about atop his palm. Grade 6 weapon flame. The pile of materials transformed into pools of liquids as soon as they touched the weapon flame, and in the end, they fused together. Duan Lingtian's hands flashed as if transforming into numerous after-images. The speed of his technique was astounding. If a weapons craftsman was here, he would surely be extremely astonished because Duan Lingtian's weapons refinement technique was really too astounding. Before long, when the materials were almost completely smelted, Duan Lingtian withdrew the narrow sword he used before and fused it into the pile of materials. Subsequently, the violet myrtle flexible sword was tossed in by him as well. Gradually, all the materials transformed into a pool of liquid that formed the shape of a sword. In the end, the shape slowly took form to transform into a dark violet flexible sword. The flexible sword was thin like a cicada's wing. It seemed to be not too different from the violet myrtle flexible sword, yet their might couldn't be compared. Duan Lingtian grasped the flexible sword tightly, then his hand shook and origin energy fused into the flexible sword. In an instant, origin energy raged and skyrocketed. Whoosh! First, 600 ancient mammoth silhouettes appeared above Duan Lingtian, Then, another 252 ancient mammoth silhouettes appeared. A total of 852 ancient mammoth silhouettes. An amplification of 42%, extraordinary performance. Duan Lingtian's face revealed a pleasantly surprised expression. He'd originally thought the grade 6 spirit sword in his hand would at most amplify his strength by 41%, but who would have imagined that it actually was able to amplify his strength by 42%. After all, an ordinary grade 6 spirit sword like the narrow sword Duan Lingtian used before was only able to provide an amplification of 38%. The grade 6 spirit saber, Tearless Knight, in the possession of the 7-star sword sect's Mizar Peak's master, Zheng Fan, was able to amplify strength by 40%, and it was already capable of being called as at the top grade amongst the top grade. Where the grade 6 spirit sword in Duan Lingtian's hands now had already completely surpassed Tearless Knight. In the entire Cloud continent, it was probably only Duan Lingtian who could refine a grade 6 spirit sword like this, the one and only person capable. After all, even the rebirth martial emperor all those years ago had only refined one grade 6 spirit weapon with an amplification of 42%. This grade 6 spirit sword is probably my peak creation. Duan Lingtian sighed with emotion, and he clenched the flexible sword even more tightly. In the future, I'll continue calling you Violet Myrtle Flexible Sword. Duan Lingtian lightly stroked the blade of the flexible sword in his hand, his gaze concentrated and gentle, as if he was stroking his lover. Swoosh! Suddenly, a gust of wind howls sounded out, interrupting Duan Lingtian's thoughts. Duan Lingtian felt his shoulders sink, and he didn't have to look to know who had returned. Little Gold, how was it? Did it go smoothly? Hee, big brother Lingtian, that Zhao Yu was jubilant when he saw the cultivation method that fellow brought to him. He looked to me as if he wished for nothing more than to directly cultivate it. Big brother Lingtian, what did you do to that cultivation method? The little gold mouse's voice transmission was filled with curiosity. What can I do? Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled, and he naturally wouldn't speak of the truth. After all, the truth was slightly unsuitable for children. Moreover, this little fellow was only 7 or 8 years old this year, and according to humans, she was only a little kid. HMPH. Big brother Lingtian, could it be that you're really so kind to pass down a cultivation method to them? The little gold mouse obviously didn't believe him. All right, you little kid, let's go, we ought to leave as well. Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled, then left the ancient city of Everlast with the little gold mouse. After they exited the ancient city of Everlast, Duan Lingtian blew a whistle and a black figure descended from the horizon. It was precisely the first-level nascent soul stage fierce beast, the Sun Eagle. Let's go. Duan Lingtian sat cross-legged on the back of the Sun Eagle, and the 7-star sword sect inner court disciple attire on his body fluttered with the wind as he was brought to travel in a flash by the Sun Eagle. The little gold mouse stood there on his shoulder as she curiously looked right and left, as she was filled with curiosity towards everything in the surroundings. Ancient City of Everlast, Ancient River Trading Company's branch. Lei. The beaming Zhao Yu walked into a small courtyard, and his tone contained excitement mixed within. Father. In next to no time, Zhao Lei opened the door from within the room and greeted Zhao Yu in. After they closed the room door, Zhao Lei had an excited expression. Father, you look so happy, could it be that it succeeded? Look, Zhao Yu passed the ancient and simple little booklet in his hand to Zhao Lei. Muscle Meridian Rebirth Scroll. Zhao Lei's gaze lit up when he saw the cover of the small booklet, and he was slightly excited. Father, is this confirmed? Don't worry, Father has looked through a portion of the beginning. It's incomparably profound and is absolutely a genuine cultivation method. Throughout the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, no, even if it's throughout the Darkstone Empire and Darken Dynasty, there might not be a cultivation method that is so miraculous. Zhao Yu's face was covered in a brilliant smile. Now, I can finally understand why Duan Lingtian was able to possess that strength and natural talent at such an age. It's completely because of this Muscle Meridian Rebirth Scroll. Wonderful. In the future, the life of Zhao Lei, will change completely. Zhao Lei took a deep breath and suppressed the excitement in his heart, then looked at Zhao Yu and asked. Father, what about Duan Lingtian? Don't worry, he's already been taken care of, otherwise, where do you think this Muscle Meridian Rebirth Scroll came from? As Zhao Yu finished speaking, he laughed loudly. Lei, Father has thought it through. Depart today and hurry to the 7-star sword sect, and take this Muscle Meridian Rebirth Scroll with you to go see your uncle. The cultivation location of your grandfather, one of the 9 great spirit points of the 7-star sword sect, is even more suitable for you to disperse your cultivation and cultivate this muscle meridian rebirth scroll instead. Grandfather. Zhao Lei's gaze shone. He naturally knew that the grandfather his father spoke of was the distinguished figure in the 7-star sword sect. One of the 2 guardian elders of the 7-star sword sect. People called him Elder Ming. Yes, father. Zhao Lei hurriedly nodded. In next to no time, under Zhao Yu's arrangement, Zhao Lei rode a nascent soul stage flying beast and headed all the way towards the 7-star sword sect. Zhao Lei's mood surged, as if he could already see his all-powerful future. In the other direction from the ancient city of Everlast. Swoosh, high above in the air, an enormous flying beast flashed past with extremely swift speed. If one were to look carefully, one would be able to discern that this flying beast was a first-level nascent soul stage Sun Eagle. On the back of the Sun Eagle, a young man in violet-colored casual clothes sat cross-legged with his eyes closed as he meditated, obviously cultivating. On the head of the Sun Eagle, a small golden ball of fur was curled up there. It was a fluffy and chubby little gold mouse. The little gold mouse stood on the head of the Sun Eagle and sent a voice transmission to urge the Sun Eagle on. Quickly, 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 Aiya, you're too slow. If you're any slower then I'll ask Big Brother Ling Tian to make a stew out of you. The Sun Eagle was a nascent soul stage fierce beast after all, and it possessed basic human intelligence. Its sharp eyes contained slight helplessness and terror mixed within when it heard the voice transmission of the little gold mouse. Little Gold, you're bullying Sun Eagle again. Suddenly, the violet-clothed young man atop the Sun Eagle's back opened up his eyes that glowed brightly. In this instant, there seemed to be something else on the young man's body, something that was difficult to fathom. 421 Chapter 422, Darkstone Empire. Hee, Big Brother Ling Tian, you're awake. The little gold mouse's figure flashed to descend onto the knee of the violet-clothed young man. Then she raised her little head to look at Duan Ling Tian as she sent a voice transmission. Big Brother Ling Tian, you seem to be slightly different. Yes, I've broken through. The violet-clothed young man, Duan Ling Tian, nodded with a smile. Exactly, he'd broken through. Officially broken through to the 5th level of the nascent soul stage. Little Gold, where are we now? Duan Ling Tian asked the little gold mouse. The little gold mouse shook her small head, then sent a voice transmission. I don't know. Don't know. The corners of Duan Ling Tian's mouth twitched, then he looked towards the Sun Eagle beneath him and blew a whistle, making the Sun Eagle descend. Instantly, the Sun Eagle's figure shook, then plunged in descent. Swoosh. The Sun Eagle carried Duan Ling Tian and the little gold mouse, seeming to transform into an arrow that had left the bow as it swiftly tore through the sky. Duan Ling Tian looked down upon the ground, and only then did he notice that he was in the sky above a desolate mountain and plains. What place is this? Duan Ling Tian had a bewildered expression, then he muttered to himself. At the beginning, Sun Eagle headed all the way north. Little Gold, how long have I cultivated for? Duan Ling Tian looked at the little gold mouse as he asked. 20 days, the little gold mouse replied via voice transmission. So long, no wonder I'm feeling slightly hungry. Duan Ling Tian rubbed his thin and dry stomach, then asked the Sun Eagle to descend into the desolate mountain and plains. Duan Ling Tian started a fire on the spot after hunting a few wild beasts. Subsequently, he started roasting the meat. The fragrance of meat quickly suffused into the air, causing Duan Ling Tian to be unable to wait for the moment he could savor it. Duan Ling Tian withdrew a spirit sword and slashed a few times on the thick and heavy meat before sprinkling some ordinary seasonings. Instantly, fragrance assaulted them. Sun Eagle, you work the hardest amongst the 3 of us, so you eat this piece first. Duan Ling Tian passed the meat in his hand to the Sun Eagle. However, in next to no time, Duan Ling Tian noticed that the jade-green eyes of the little gold mouse was glaring at the Sun Eagle. Whereas although the Sun Eagle coveted the roasted meat in Duan Ling Tian's hand, yet it didn't dare make the slightest movement even after a long time, as if it was extremely afraid that the little gold mouse would pounce over and roast it as well. Little fellow, you're really overbearing, here, eat it. Duan Ling Tian was slightly helpless and passed the roasted meat in his hand to the little gold mouse. The little gold mouse glanced at the Sun Eagle once more, with an experience as if she was saying, at least you're sensible, then she received the roasted meat and started nibbling. Duan Ling Tian continued to roast meat. When he and Sun Eagle had filled their bellies, the night sky had already slowly descended. We'll spend the night here tonight, and leave early in the morning. Duan Lingtian said to the little gold mouse. Then he asked the sun eagle to conceal itself high above in the sky, and he himself casually found a large withered tree before laying down atop the enormous tree trunk. The little gold mouse leapt up onto a nearby tree trunk and fell asleep before long. The moon was bright and the stars were few. The gentle moonlight poured down to envelop Duan Lingtian. It's already been 3 months since I left the 7-star sword sect. According to my knowledge, the Darkstone Empire seems to be north of the ancient city of Everlast. If the Sun Eagle flew north all the way for 20 days, then wouldn't it mean that the ground beneath my feet already belongs to the domain of the Darkstone Empire? Duan Lingtian gazed at the bright moon that hung in the sky as he thought in his heart. The moon tonight was especially round. In his previous life, the Mid-Autumn Festival was completely meaningless to him who was an orphan, because he didn't have any family members to reunite with. In this lifetime, it was different. He had a mother that doted on him, and 2 fiancés that he cherished like his life. Unknowingly, it has already been 3 years since leaving the Crimson Sky Kingdom. I wonder how mother is now. After Duan Lingtian recalled the mother of his current lifetime, Li Ru, his thoughts were beyond control after they occurred. The 2-year agreement with the Zither young master is in 9 months. I'll bring Kair and Little Fei on a trip back to the Crimson Sky Kingdom after fulfilling this 2-year agreement. Duan Lingtian set a plan in his heart. His thoughts drifted, and unknowingly, Duan Lingtian had fallen into a deep sleep. At dawn the next day, they departed once again. The Sun Eagle flew for 5 days consecutively, yet still hadn't flown out of the desolate area. Too slow, too slow. In the end, the little gold mouse was completely impatient and she sent a voice transmission to Duan Lingtian. Big brother Lingtian, this fellow's speed is too slow, I'll fly you. Okay. Duan Lingtian nodded, as the speed of little gold far surpassed the Sun Eagle by more than 10 times. Presumably, it wouldn't be long before they would be able to leave this desolate area. Swoosh! The little gold mouse stood mid-air and instantly enlarged, like a 3-meter-tall hill. Duan Lingtian followed momentum and descended onto the back of the little gold mouse. Right when Duan Lingtian intended to call over the Sun Eagle, the little gold mouse turned around and looked at the Sun Eagle, and flowing lights revolved within her jade-green eyes. Duan Lingtian understood that little gold ought to be communicating with the Sun Eagle. In the end, he first saw a wisp of terror appear in the sharp eyes of the Sun Eagle, then the Sun Eagle glanced at him before spreading out its wings before turning around and flying towards the way it came. Duan Lingtian was stunned. Little gold, what did you say to the Sun Eagle? Hee, big brother Lingtian, I asked him to go home. Otherwise, I'll make a stew out of him. The little gold mouse squinted as her voice transmission entered Duan Lingtian's ears, causing Duan Lingtian's face to freeze. The voice that was pleasing to the ear like a young girl's voice revealed the tone of a little devil. Little gold, you chased the Sun Eagle back to the primeval forest, so in the future, I'll be relying on you to give me a ride. Duan Lingtian smiled. If the little gold mouse was willing to give him a ride, then the efficiency wasn't just slightly higher. HMPH, so be it. It's better than allowing that fellow to ascend my back. I'm a jade-eyed heavenly mouse, a descendant of a saint beast. How could I be reduced to the mount for a mixed-haired bird? The little gold mouse's voice transmission was filled with arrogance. Descendant of a saint beast. Duan Lingtian was surprised when he heard the little gold mouse. He'd searched through the entire memories of the rebirth martial emperor, yet there wasn't any recording related to descendants of saint beasts. In other words, even the rebirth martial emperor had never heard of descendants of saint beasts. Yeah, after I overcame the 6-9 heavenly tribulation that day, a lot of inherited information awoke within my mind. Our Jade-Eye's heavenly mouse family are descendants of saint beasts. Our bloodline is noble and transcends above the myriad of demon beasts. The little gold mouse replied via voice transmission. Looks like there are many things within Cloud Continent that even existences at the level of the rebirth martial emperor didn't know. Duan Lingtian sighed with emotion. The rebirth martial emperor had experienced 2 lifetimes after all, but even then, he actually had never heard of descendants of saint beasts. He could imagine how mysterious those saint beasts were. Saint beast, I can tell it isn't an ordinary beast just from how it's called. Duan Lingtian thought in his heart, then he asked the little gold mouse about the saint beasts. Unexpectedly, even the little gold mouse herself didn't know. She only knew that her jade-eyed heavenly mouse family was a descendant of saint beasts. As for what saint beasts were, she knew completely nothing. Big brother Lingtian, I'm going to speed up. The little gold mouse's voice transmission entered into Duan Lingtian's ears, causing him to shudder and hurriedly stabilize his figure. Swoosh! In the next moment, the little gold mouse sped up to the limit, seeming to transform into a gold light that flashed past the horizon. Everywhere the gold light passed, over 1,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes dashed out following it, and a narrow and long path in the sky was opened up between the clouds and mist that covered the sky. The path in the sky gradually closed and didn't leave any traces behind. Truly efficient. Duan Lingtian lay on the fluffy back of the little gold mouse, feeling incredibly comfortable as if laying on the sofa from his previous life. Although the little gold mouse's speed didn't increase to the limit, it was still almost 10 times faster than the Sun Eagle's full speed, and it saved him quite a lot of time. Big brother Lingtian, there's a city ahead, let's go look for a restaurant to eat. The little gold mouse had carried Duan Lingtian and flown for half a day. She seemed as if she'd made a discovery, and her body that was like a small hill plunged downwards as she sent a voice transmission to Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian lowered his head to look down towards the ground. Indeed, on the ground ahead, an extremely ordinary city stood there, like an oasis in the desert that was especially conspicuous. You little gluttonous mouse, go down. Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled. Hee, okay. The little gold mouse replied via voice transmission, then her body that was like a small hill descended within a luxuriant forest outside the city. Duan Lingtian left the back of the little gold mouse that was spacious like the ground, and his body flashed before steadily descending onto the ground. Swoosh! The little gold mouse's enormous body abruptly shrunk and once again transformed into a tiny little thing that flashed to stand on Duan Lingtian's shoulder. Duan Lingtian walked swiftly forward towards the distant city. This city occupied a vast area that wasn't inferior to the ancient city of Everlast. Duan Lingtian entered the city, observing streams of people flow on the large streets in the city and wagons forming long lines like dragons that never stopped flowing. Squeak squeak, the little gold mouse was unwilling to hide under Duan Lingtian's sleeve, and she stood on Duan Lingtian's shoulder as she curiously sized up everything before her. The pair of one man one mouse, although stranger, didn't attract the attention of others. Duan Lingtian noticed as well that there was no lack of martial artists that brought along fierce beasts amongst the passing pedestrians. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian saw a restaurant appear ahead, and his gaze lit up. Little gold, let's go eat in this restaurant. Okay. The little gold mouse's voice transmission entered into Duan Lingtian's ears, as she was extremely excited. Duan Lingtian entered the restaurant and he could see that the restaurant was almost fully seated. Fortunately, a table of customers had just finished eating nearby Duan Lingtian, and they stood up and left. My luck isn't bad. Duan Lingtian's eyes lit up. Swoosh! Whereas the little gold mouse that stood atop his shoulder directly flashed out instead and descended onto the table. Right when Duan Lingtian wasn't even a step away from the table before him. Haha, my luck isn't bad, there just happens to be an empty table. A rather sharp voice sounded out, and something flashed before Duan Lingtian's eyes. Then he saw a young man who possessed a skinny figure that was like a bag of bones had beat him to it and sat before the table. Duan Lingtian stopped his footstep and frowned slightly. 422 Chapter 423, Conflict. Meanwhile, another young man of medium stature sat opposite the skinny young man. From the beginning until the end, the two have regarded Duan Lingtian as nothing. Squeak squeak. Meanwhile, the little gold mouse furiously looked at the two young men as she bared her claws and brandished her fangs. But, the fluffy and chubby little gold mouse acting fierce had no deterrent force whatsoever. What, little mouse, you want to play with us? The skinny young man looked at the little gold mouse as he asked while laughing. He only thought that this was an ordinary pet mouse. Squeak squeak, but, the words of the skinny young man was like lighting a fuse to a bomb, and it completely enraged the little gold mouse. The little gold mouse swung her tails out, precisely striking the teacup on the table. Slap! Instantly, the teacup flew out, flashing straight for the skinny young man. Bang! The skinny young man wasn't prepared in the slightest and was hit straight on the face, and the remaining tea within the teacup splashed all over his face. Ha 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 ha, the customers seated at the surrounding tables who saw this scene couldn't refrain from bursting into laughter. Alright, little gold, let's go to a different restaurant. Seeing that the restaurant was packed, Duan Lingtian looked at the little gold mouse and called out. He'd only just arrived here and didn't want to stir up trouble. Although he'd seen through the cultivations of these two young men and wasn't afraid of them, the little gold mouse's actions earlier had undoubtedly helped him vent his anger, causing the discontent in his heart to be completely gone. Squeak squeak, unexpectedly, the little gold mouse was unwilling to leave. She stood on the table in a human-like manner with her front paws crossed before her and looked at the skinny young man provocatively. "Little mouse, you're courting death." The skinny young man was enraged. His hand was enveloped with roaring origin energy, seeming to transform into a fan that slapped downwards towards the little gold mouse. Above the skinny young man, 400 ancient mammoth silhouettes condensed into form. Third level of the nascent soul stage. Squeak. The little gold mouse lightly cried out, then her tail flashed out like a bolt of lightning to intercept the palm strike the young man slapped down. Slap. The instant the little gold mouse's tail touched the skinny young man, he let out a shrill cry and then a wave of sounds of bones breaking sounded out at almost the exact same instant. "You're courting death." The skinny young man's companion, the other young man of medium stature, clearly never imagined that the little gold mouse had this sort of strength, and his face went grim as he attacked as well. This young man's strength was stronger than the skinny young man, and he was a 5th level nascent soul stage martial artist. Unfortunately, this little strength was nothing before the little gold mouse, and he was directly swept flying by the little gold mouse's tail before crashing onto the ground. What a terrifying fierce beast. I'm completely unable to see clearly exactly how many ancient mammoth silhouettes flashed in the sky atop this little gold mouse. A 3rd level nascent soul stage martial artist and a 5th level nascent soul stage martial artist weren't a match for it. Moreover, it seemed to have attacked so casually and smoothly. Its strength is at least at the 7th level of the nascent soul stage or above. The crowd of people in the restaurant sighed emotionally, and they all looked at the little gold mouse with gazes that contained slight burning desire, and many people looked at Duan Ling Tian with envious expressions. The two young men that were taught a lesson by the little gold mouse felt they'd lost face and left the restaurant in dejection. "You little fellow." Duan Ling Tian shook his head and laughed, then sat down. At a nearby table, the eyes of a young woman that was around a little over 20 lit up. "Such a cute and formidable little gold mouse. What, little Lou, you like that mouse?" The sword-shaped brows of the young man in embroidered clothes that sat opposite the young woman raised up and his eyes emitted a trace of affection. The young girl spat out her tongue. "I like it, but unfortunately, it has an owner already." "Isn't that simple?" The young man in embroidered clothes stood up and directly walked towards Duan Ling Tian. Duan Ling Tian had only just sat down and ordered some food from the attendant when he noticed the young man in embroidered clothes walking over. Before long, the young man in embroidered clothes glanced at Duan Ling Tian indifferently and asked, "Hey, how much for that mouse of yours?" His tone contained an unquestionable intent of command. Squeak squeak, the little gold mouse glared at the young man in embroidered clothes, then bared her fangs and brandished her claws at him, and she was extremely infuriated. As for Duan Ling Tian, he completely couldn't be bothered to pay attention to the young man in embroidered clothing. He extended his hand to comb the hair of the little gold mouse and said with a light smile, "Little gold, you should change your irritable temper, you should be more ladylike, do you understand?" The little gold mouse couldn't help but turn to look at Duan Ling Tian when she heard this, and asked via voice transmission. "Ladylike? What's ladylike?" "Ladylike is to possess a meek disposition and not lose your temper easily." For the sake of not allowing other people to discern that he was able to communicate with the little gold mouse, Duan Ling Tian intentionally replied via voice transmission. "It's a female." Right at this moment, another young girl that was a little over 20 appeared by the side of the young man in embroidered clothes. The young woman had a delicate and pretty appearance, and although she couldn't be considered to be a first-rate beauty, she possessed good looks and aroused affection of others towards her. Presently, the young woman looked at the little gold mouse with a gaze filled with burning desire and yearning. "Kid, I'm Chong Wei from the Phoenix Nest City's Chong clan, name a price and sell this mouse to me." The young man in embroidered clothes looked at Duan Ling Tian as he spoke once again, and his gaze was condescending as he looked down at Duan Ling Tian. "I'm not selling." Duan Ling Tian didn't even raise his head as he continued to comb the fur of the little gold mouse, and the little gold mouse's fur felt soft and it was comfortable when touching it. Furthermore, the little gold mouse lay on the table in enjoyment, but its jade green eyes stared fixedly at the young man in embroidered clothes, and it seemed to contain slight rage mixed within. She was a descendant of a saint beast, a jade-eyed heavenly mouse. This human actually called her a mouse. If it wasn't for her recalled Duan Ling Tian asking her to be ladylike earlier, she would have swept her tails over long ago and directly swept this detestable human flying. What? You're not giving Chong Wei, face, and not giving my Chong clan face. Chong Hui's voice suddenly went low and heavy yet loud, and it spread throughout the entire restaurant. Instantly, the crowd of customers within the restaurant were all alarmed. He's the Chong clan's second young master, Chong Wei. I heard long ago that the second young master of the Chong clan is infatuated with the martial arts, and possesses a cultivation at the 7th level of the nascent soul stage at a mere age of 29, I never expected to be able to see him in this restaurant. This young woman by his side, could it be that she's that fiancée of his, the Qian clan's third young miss, Qian Lu? She should be, When he saw the restaurant going into an uproar from a single sentence of Chong Hui's, Duan Lingtian raised his head and glanced calmly at Chong Wei. Do you feel that making your identity conspicuous is able to satisfy your vanity and make me retreat after learning of your identity, and sell her to you? I'll say it one last time, I'm not selling her. Duan Lingtian's tone was resolute and firm. You. As Chong Wei got angry from embarrassment, the origin energy on his body surged and the energy of heaven and earth roiled above him to converge into 1,100 ancient mammoth silhouettes in the end. 8th level nascent soul stage. The Chong clan's second young master has broken through again. The natural talent of the Chong clan's second young master is really monstrous. Besides the daughter of the city governor, I'm afraid no one in the younger generation of our Phoenix Nest City is able to compare with him. A 29-year-old 8th level nascent soul stage martial artist, even in the entire Darkstone Empire, such natural talent can be considered to be one of the top in the mid-range of natural talents. The luck of the Chong clan is really good to possess such a genius in the martial Dao. The crowd of people within the restaurant were all shocked by the strength revealed by Chong Wei. What? Still want to use force? Duan Lingtian remained unfazed as he glanced indifferently at Chong Wei. So what if I am? Chong Wei shouted out explosively, his origin energy roared as he raised his hand, then it transformed into a white-colored serpent that coiled on his arm. Bang! He struck out with his fist, the sounds of air exploding continuously rose and fell as the white serpent flashed out to bite at Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian had a calm expression, as if he didn't take Chong Hui's punch seriously at all. But the hand he placed on the little gold mouse had already been withdrawn. Squeak! Suddenly, a sharp cry sounded out, causing the crowd of customers in the restaurant to go pale. Some customers with comparatively lower cultivations went ghastly pale, as if they'd suffered an extremely great blow. It was Little Gold's enraged cry. At the same time, Little Gold's tail swept out once again, and the air in the surroundings seemed to be completely sucked out as it moved to meet Chong Hui's descending fist. The white-colored serpent that flowed out from Chong Hui's fist was crushed by Little Gold's tail, and not only that, Little Gold's tail quickly descended onto Chong Hui's fist. Slap! An enormous slap sounded out, and accompanying it was a shrill cry and the clear sounds of bones cracking and exploding. Subsequently, dazzling fresh blood sprayed out from Chong Hui's fist, transforming into numerous beautiful red roses in the air that slowly descended. Bang! As for Chong Wei, he was directly swept flying by the little gold mouse's tail. His fist had completely vanished, and only half a mangled arm remained. Obviously, Chong Hui's fist including half his arm was directly crushed by the little gold mouse's tail swing. Demon beast. It's a demon beast, The gazes of people in the restaurant stared blankly at the 2,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes that were gradually dispersing atop the little gold mouse, and they were completely dumbstruck. Void-prying stage demon beast. Chong Wei, who stopped the bleeding from his mangled arm with great difficulty, had a ghastly pale face when he saw to his astonishment the 2,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes that were gradually vanishing, and his eyes revealed terror. He'd never imagined that this mouse was actually a formidable demon beast. Brother Wei. Qian Lu's beautiful face went pale as she hurriedly went over to support Chong Wei up, and the gaze she had when she looked at the little gold mouse again was completely different. Demon beast. This cute little gold mouse was actually a demon beast that crippled an arm of her fiancé with only a swing of its tail. Little Lu, let's go. Chong Wei took a deep breath before leaving with Qian Lu. When he left, a sense of icy coldness and terror arose within the gaze Chong Wei shot at Duan Lingtian. This young man had a demon beast by his side and was obviously of extraordinary background. After Chong Wei and Qian Lu left, the gazes of the people in the restaurant all moved away from Duan Lingtian and the little gold mouse, as they were extremely afraid that continuing to look would cause them to suffer a calamity. That was a demon beast. An existence comparable to a void-prying stage expert. It wasn't something they could offend. Peace at long last. Duan Lingtian's brows raised, then looked at the little gold mouse and said with a light smile, "Little gold, you did well." Squeak squeak, the jade green eyes of the little gold mouse emitted a sheen of delight when she was praised by Duan Lingtian. 423 Chapter 424, Taboo. Before long, his food had arrived. After Duan Lingtian casually ate a little bit, he concentrated on watching the little gold mouse gulp down her food. The little fellow's body seemed small, yet she was a glutton, and it caused many people in the restaurant to click their tongues in surprise. Suddenly, a wave of discussion entered Duan Lingtian's ears. "Quickly finish your food, we're still able to make it to watch the battles before the groom search competition for the city governor's daughter. The strength of the city governor's daughter is too strong, not to mention a young genius below the age of 25, I'm afraid there isn't even anyone amongst the young geniuses below the age of 30 of our Darkstone Empire that are able to be a match for the city governor's daughter. Today is the last day of the groom search competition, and practically all the young geniuses around our Phoenix Nest City have rushed over. However, in my opinion, I'm afraid no one will be able to defeat the city governor's daughter even on this last day to become the son-in-law of the city governor. The Lord City Governor's requirements are too high. Defeating his daughter at an age below 25 years old, even in the entire Darkstone Empire and the Darken Dynasty, I'm afraid such a person is an existence that's akin to phoenix feathers and Qilin horns." The two people who in discussion finished their food hastily before leaving. Groom search competition. Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled as he never imagined that the circumstances that would only appear in wuxia novels from his previous life would actually be encountered by him. In next to no time, a few more people had walked into the restaurant, and they sighed with emotion as they walked. "I wonder exactly what level of cultivation the city governor's daughter is at." Today, that young man around the age of 24 who possessed a cultivation at the 4th level of the nascent soul stage was actually defeated by her. That young man is the strongest person who's participated in the groom search competition until now. I never imagined that he was still defeated by the city governor's daughter in one move. The city governor's daughter adjusts her strength based on her opponent and seemed to have not used her full strength until now. Looks like no one is able to get the beauty. According to my knowledge, the city governor's daughter always wears a veil. Could it be that you've seen her appearance? We don't know if she's a beauty or a beast. So what if she's ugly? Being able to become the son-in-law of the city governor and even obtain the soul transformation fruit is undoubtedly a good fortune. Soul transformation fruit. Duan Lingtian initially didn't care about it much, but when he heard one of the people mention the soul transformation fruit, he had an elated expression as he stood up abruptly. "Big brother." Duan Lingtian looked at the middle-aged man that spoke earlier and asked courteously. "Did you say soul transformation fruit earlier?" The middle-aged man nodded when he saw Duan Lingtian was so polite, and he said with a calm expression. "Exactly, it's precisely the soul transformation fruit." "What, little brother, you're interested in that soul transformation fruit?" "Yes." Duan Lingtian nodded, then asked. "I heard Big Brother say earlier that there's a way to obtain the soul transformation fruit." The middle-aged man nodded. Exactly, the city governor had held a groom search competition for that unmarried daughter of his for these past 10 days. Today is the last day. So long as you're able to defeat the city governor's daughter in the groom search competition, then not only would you be able to become the city governor's son-in-law, you'll even be able to obtain the soul transformation fruit. Supposedly, this soul transformation fruit is a great thing. If it's consumed by an inscription master, then it's even able to allow the inscription master's spiritual force to raise a level. As he finished speaking, the middle-aged man sized up Duan Lingtian. "Little brother, based on your age, you're only slightly older than that city governor's daughter. However, I advise you to put away this thought. Although you fit the conditions for the city governor's daughter's groom search competition, the city governor's daughter has already revealed a cultivation at the 5th level of the nascent soul stage. Moreover, she seemed to be holding back." "Thank you, big brother." Duan Lingtian thanked the middle-aged man, then tossed down some silver before leaving the restaurant in a hurry with the little gold mouse. "Big brother Lingtian, I haven't finished eating." The little gold mouse's voice transmission contained slight displeasure. "I'll let you eat until you're satisfied later. Right now I have some important things to do," Duan Lingtian said in a hurry. After leaving the restaurant, Duan Lingtian found a passerby and asked the location for the groom search competition before hurrying over. What city governor's son-in-law? He wasn't interested in the slightest. He was interested in that soul transformation fruit. If it's said that ordinary spirit fruits can only be chanced upon by luck and not sought by martial artists, then the soul transformation fruit was even harder to come by. The soul transformation fruit was a type of spirit fruit capable of increasing the level of the soul, and within the description of spirit fruits within Cloud Continent, it wasn't even at 1%. Although my cultivation has increased quite a bit, my spiritual force seemed to have completely fallen into a bottleneck, and hasn't been able to break through to the void prying stage for a long time. The groom search competition was carried out right outside the city governor's estate. When Duan Lingtian arrived before the arena of the groom search competition, his mind was fluttering. His spiritual force has arrived at the breakthrough point between the nascent soul stage and the void prying stage long ago, yet he was unable to break through for a long time. He'd been at a loss and helpless because of this. Now, he'd seen the light of hope. If there really is a soul transformation fruit, then my soul will transform once I consume it and advance a level to the void prying stage. At that time, my spiritual force will become stronger once again and I'll be able to inscribe even high-level inscriptions. As if he had a treasure mountain, but didn't have the tools to excavate it, this feeling had caused Duan Lingtian to be displeased since the beginning. Groom search competition. Fun, fun. Big brother Lingtian, you want to marry that city governor's daughter? Aren't you afraid that big sister Kair and big sister Fei will get angry? The little gold mouse's voice transmission was filled with excitement, and as she finished speaking, it was as if she was anxious to see the world in disorder. Duan Lingtian glared at the little gold mouse. I don't have any interest towards that city governor's daughter, I only want to obtain that soul transformation fruit. Ordinary spirit fruits were rare and priceless, but the soul transformation fruit was amongst the less than 1% of spirit fruits that were able to advance the soul, so it was even rarer. Presently, since Duan Lingtian had encountered it, he wouldn't easily miss the opportunity. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian had arrived at his destination. A high platform stood before the city governor's estate now, and it was incomparably spacious. It was precisely the groom search competition's arena. Streams of people surged nearby the arena in an intense bustle, and the sounds of shouting rose and fell continuously without end. The groom search competition is held for 10 days, and today is the last day. There actually isn't a single young genius under the age of 25 from our Phoenix Nest City or the surrounding tens of cities that is a match for the city governor's daughter. It's said that the city governor's daughter is merely 20 years of age, possessing an unfathomable cultivation at the age of 20 is truly shocking. Up until today, people have only forced her to use a strength at the 5th level of the nascent soul stage. Yeah, even then, she seems to still be holding back. The crowd of people discussed animatedly before the city governor's estate. At this moment, atop the arena of the groom search competition, the mysterious daughter of the city governor stood there gracefully, her pair of beautiful hands that were white like jade were exposed in the air, and a fiery red dress beautifully emphasized her beautiful and charming figure that caused one to be unable to refrain from a myriad of daydreams. On the face of the city governor's daughter was a fiery red veil that only revealed a pair of beautiful eyes that were like autumn water, and her lovely hair that drooped down were like black strands of Babylon willow as they lightly swung with the wind. Even if one was within the sea of people, she still gave one a calm and peaceful feeling. Although I can't see her appearance clearly, just by this disposition, it's sufficient to cause ones to be interested. I presume the appearance beneath the veil of a woman with such a disposition wouldn't be bad. Duan Lingtian was shocked in his heart. Based solely on disposition, no one amongst the women by Duan Lingtian's side or the women he knew were able to compare to this city governor's daughter. Under his curiosity, Duan Lingtian's spiritual force extended out, wanting to pry into the secrets of this city governor's daughters. According to the information he'd obtained, the city governor's daughter was only 20 and possessed an extraordinary cultivation, and up until this point, she'd already revealed a cultivation at the 5th level of the nascent soul stage, yet she seemed to still be holding back. At the same time that Duan Lingtian's spiritual force flashed out, he sighed emotionally in his heart. My cultivation's advancement is already considered to be quick. Within the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, it could be considered to be a speed that towered above all. I never imagined that I'd actually encounter a genius in the martial Dao whose cultivation's advancement is even swifter than mine in this remote city of the Darkstone Empire. If the cultivation of the city governor's daughter wasn't piled up solely by relying on spirit fruits, then her natural talent would absolutely not be inferior to his. Suddenly, Duan Lingtian's spiritual force hadn't even touched the city governor's daughter when he couldn't help but be astounded in his heart. Because at this moment, an even stronger spiritual force seemed to have noticed his spiritual force and directly pressed over. Inscription Master. Duan Lingtian's pupils constricted as he never expected that there would be such a formidable inscription master by the city governor's daughter's side. The strength of the spiritual force of this inscription master wasn't just a level above his. Instantly, Duan Lingtian didn't dare hesitate as he hurriedly withdrew his spiritual force. That formidable spiritual force seemed as if it had no intention of making a fuss over it with Duan Lingtian, and didn't pursue him after Duan Lingtian's spiritual force withdrew. Fortunately, he showed mercy, otherwise, my soul would surely be heavily injured. Duan Lingtian shuddered in fear, and at the same time, he realized his own rashness. According to the memories of the rebirth martial emperor, he knew deeply that even inscription masters didn't dare rashly use their spiritual force to spy on others. This was a taboo, whereas all along his journey in cultivation, he's never encountered any formidable inscription masters, so he'd tossed the portion of the rebirth martial emperor's memories that was about this taboo to the back of his head. Now that he'd left the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom and was at the Darkstone Empire, he'd encountered a truly formidable inscription master. Duan Lingtian's gaze started to sweep the crowd of people, wanting to find the owner of the formidable spiritual force that extended out earlier. But no matter how he searched, he was unable to notice a trace of that person. It seemed as if that person had appeared out of thin air. Could it be that this inscription master has come for the soul transformation fruit as well? Duan Lingtian's heart jerked as a bad premonition arose in his heart. 424 Chapter 425, Can I Not Marry You? In the sky above the groom search competition arena outside the city governor's estate, there were two figures standing in the sky behind the clouds and mist. One of the two was a middle-aged man in a crimson-red robe with gold edges. The middle-aged man had a firm expression, emitting a dignified disposition as he stood, and it shapelessly brought a type of oppressive feeling to others. Beside the middle-aged man, an old man past 70 stood in the air. Interesting, interesting. The old man in gray clothes had a calm expression, and his muddy eyes abruptly lit up as if he'd noticed something new. Elder Kong, you've noticed something? The middle-aged man asked curiously. Eldest young master, perhaps, the destined person of the young miss has appeared. The gray-clothed old man spoke slowly with an unfathomable expression. Elder Kong, what you mean is... The middle-aged man's eyes squinted and had an astounded expression. In the groom search competition's arena, the city governor's daughter stood there silently. Whereas although there were many people in the surroundings, most of them came to watch the show, and no one ascended the arena after a long time. Let me experience the strength of the city governor's daughter. Along with an explosive shout, a swift figure flashed to ascend to the arena. This was a young man around the age of 25 to 26, with a handsome appearance and arrogance mixed between his brows. Your age is past the limit, get down. The city governor's daughter hadn't even reacted when the azure-clothed old woman standing at the side of the arena raised her head indifferently and glanced at the young man. The young man opened his mouth, yet he hadn't finished speaking. Bang! An enormous bang sounded out, and an aged figure had appeared where the young man stood earlier. In the blink of an eye, everyone present saw that the azure-clothed old woman that stood at the side of the arena was suddenly standing at the spot the young man was standing earlier. As for the young man, he was directly blasted down the arena. The groom search competition of my young miss is restricted to young talents below the age of 25, don't come make a fool of yourself if you're above 25 years of age. I can discern if your age is over or not with a glance, don't try your luck. The old woman spoke slowly with a tone that contained incomparable confidence mixed within. However, no one present dared doubt what the old woman said. So fast, the eyes of Duan Lingtian who stood at the side of the arena squinted. The old woman's speed was shockingly swift. Although he was curious of the old woman's strength, Duan Lingtian didn't dare use his spiritual force to detect it. Could it be that the formidable spiritual force from before came from this old woman? Duan Lingtian couldn't refrain from thinking in his heart. He'd noticed the old woman that stood beside the arena long ago, but he only thought that she was an ordinary servant of the city governor's estate. He had never imagined that the old woman had hid her ability. Allow me. A light-footed figure descended into the arena. It was a young man around the age of 23 or 24. Swoosh. The young man looked at the city governor's daughter that stood in the distance, then he stomped on the ground, transforming into a gust of wind as he took the initiative to gain the advantage in the battle. Whoosh. In the air, 600 ancient mammoth silhouettes condensed into form, then dashed out in a formidable array. Swish! A 3-foot-long blade appeared in the young man's hand, then his origin energy rages as he swept it out horizontally. Instantly, another 168 ancient mammoth silhouettes appeared beside the 600 ancient mammoth silhouettes. 4th level nascent soul stage. Grade 7 spirit weapon. This sword strike contained the strength of 768 ancient mammoths. The hearts of the people present couldn't help but float up to their throats when they saw the young man's sword about to touch the city governor's daughter. Swoosh! In practically an instant, as if a cool breeze blew past, the city governor's daughter had finally made a move. She casually swung her sleeve, and her sleeve instantly expanded, containing roaring origin energy as it swept towards the young man. Bang! Without any suspense, the young man and his sword were directly blasted down from the arena. At the same time, above the city governor's daughter, 800 ancient mammoth silhouettes could be vaguely seen. At this moment, the city governor's daughter didn't utilize a spirit weapon. 6th level of the nascent soul stage. My god, the city governor's daughter was really concealing her cultivation. She's actually a 6th level nascent soul stage martial artist. A 20-year-old 6th level nascent soul stage martial artist. There seems to have never been an appearance of a person with such natural talent in the history of our Darkstone Empire, right? Even if it's throughout the entire Darken Dynasty, there are very few monstrous geniuses in the martial Dao like her. The surrounding crowd of spectators were in an uproar, as all of them were shocked by the cultivation displayed by the city governor's daughter. 6th level of the nascent soul stage at the age of 20. A slightly surprised expression appeared on Duan Lingtian's face. Was this city governor's daughter really only 20? Hee, big brother Lingtian, her natural talent seems to be better than yours. The little gold mouse's voice transmission entered into Duan Lingtian's ears. Duan Lingtian's brows raised, and his eyes contained slight astonishment mixed within. A 6th level nascent soul stage martial artist at the age of 20. Solely in terms of cultivation, it was indeed stronger than his. As for natural talent, Duan Lingtian neither agreed nor disagreed. His natural talent could be considered as the limit of natural talent for martial artists on Cloud Continent. Even if the natural talent of the city governor's daughter was any higher, it would at most be on par with him. Whereas his natural talent was only unearthed by the 10,000-year stalactite milk 3 years ago, so his starting point was much later than the city governor's daughter. After the city governor's daughter revealed a cultivation at the 6th level of the nascent soul stage, no one ascended the arena to get a beating anymore. Time slowly flowed by. The groom search competition will officially come to an end in half an hour. The azure-clothed old woman said indifferently. Looks like no one is able to defeat the city governor's daughter and get the girl. There's also that soul transformation fruit. Supposedly, one can consume it even if one isn't an inscription master. Once consumed, the soul will obtain a huge advancement, and would even be able to affect comprehension ability to a certain extent. The crowd discussed animatedly. Big brother Lingtian, are you still not going? The little gold mouse's voice transmission entered into Duan Lingtian's ears. Duan Lingtian's brows raised, then he stomped with his feet to leap up and descend onto the groom search competition's arena. For a time, the combination of one man and one mouse attracted the attention of everyone. Another person has gone up to seek a beating. It's even a young man that looks to be 22 at most. Isn't this young man that person we saw in the restaurant earlier? It seems to be so. That little gold mouse on his shoulder isn't simple, it's a formidable demon beast. That Chong clan young master, Chong Wei, had his arm crippled from a single swing of the tail by it. That harmless little gold mouse is actually a void-prying stage demon beast. In next to no time, along with the explosive revelations of the people who had seen Duan Lingtian in the restaurant earlier, everyone knew that the little gold mouse that stood on Duan Lingtian's shoulder was a demon beast. Demon beast. The azure-clothed old woman heard the discussions of the crowd, then she looked at Duan Lingtian and said indifferently. The rules of our city governor's estate's groom search competition is to disallow the usage of any other external sources of strength besides spirit weapons. Squeak squeak, the little gold mouse brandished her claws and bared her fangs at the old woman when she heard the old woman's words, then the little gold mouse turned her body around and shook her butt at the azure-clothed old woman. This caused the azure-clothed old woman to be stunned. The surrounding crowd of people were dumbstruck as well. This is really a demon beast. It has simply destroyed the lofty image of demon beasts in my heart. This little gold mouse doesn't look like a demon beast no matter how I look at it, it's instead like a pet. Meanwhile, the beautiful watery eyes of the city governor's daughter that had remained motionless all along looked at the little gold mouse by Duan Lingtian's side, and her willow-shaped brows slightly raised. What a cute little gold mouse. The city governor's daughter spoke with a gentle and moving voice that caused one to feel as if bathing in spring breeze. Don't worry, she won't attack. Duan Lingtian nodded to the azure-clothed old woman, then looked at the city governor's daughter and smiled lightly. May I know young miss name? Want to know? Then defeat me first. The city governor's daughter looked at Duan Lingtian and said slowly, her voice was airy, as if it reverberated out from a gorge. Duan Lingtian was stunned, then he nodded and said, young miss, I wonder, can I not marry you if I defeat you? I only want the soul transformation fruit, is that all right? When Duan Lingtian said these words, he felt slightly awkward. After all, these words were slightly hurtful. But he had to say it, as the reason he'd ascended the groom search competition's arena wasn't the city governor's daughter, but the soul transformation fruit. The soul transformation fruit was too important and too difficult to come by for him. He wasn't willing to miss the opportunity. Along with Duan Lingtian words entering the ears of everyone, the scene went deathly silent. After a short moment, the surrounding spectators were in a complete uproar. FK, I didn't hear wrongly, right? This kid actually said he only wants the soul transformation fruit and not the city governor's daughter. Is he mad? Although the soul transformation fruit is difficult to come by, but how is it better than the city governor's daughter? Marrying the city governor's daughter would mean that he would have the chance to soar into the sky. Madman, madman, the crowd was in an uproar as they were all shocked by Duan Lingtian's words. Of course, there were also some people that felt Duan Lingtian was too arrogant and conceited. This kid looks to be around the age of 22, but he actually dares speak such arrogant words. Does he really think he can defeat the city governor's daughter? Exactly. If he's unable to defeat the city governor's daughter, then what he said now is completely useless. He's too arrogant, High above in the air, the red-robed middle-aged man couldn't help but be stunned and had a strange expression. Elder Kong, I slightly believe it now, perhaps, he really is the man in Tian Wu's destiny. He only came for the soul transformation fruit. The temptation of the soul transformation fruit is too strong for an inscription master. Elder Kong nodded. His spiritual force is only a fraction away from stepping into the void-prying stage. It's still the first time that I've seen a little fellow at such a young age possess such a formidable spiritual force. Elder Kong seems to be extremely interested in him. The red-robed middle-aged man laughed. Elder Kong didn't reply, yet his eyes that flickered with bright lights were sufficient to reveal his thoughts. In the groom search competition's arena. Kid, aren't you ashamed for talking big? The azure-clothed old woman's face sank, and her fierce gaze swept towards Duan Lingtian. If you're here to make trouble, then get down. Duan Lingtian was slightly embarrassed. People can't even speak the truth in this age. If you want the soul transformation fruit, then it will depend on if you have the ability. The city governor's daughter let out a shout in a gentle voice. 425 Chapter 426, Flower Rain. If you want the soul transformation fruit, then it will depend on if you have the ability. The city governor's daughter's shout seemed to contain slight rage mixed within. Even a gentle person would get enraged. How could the pampered daughter of the city governor not become enraged when she was looked down on by a man? Whoosh! Influenced by her extreme rage, her gentle and graceful figure flashed, seeming to transform into a fairy within a fire, like a flaming phoenix, as she directly flashed towards Duan Lingtian. Swoosh! Her delicate jade-like hand unfolded into a palm, whistling out as she attacked out in anger, and her vast origin energy raged and skyrocketed as it approached Duan Lingtian. This palm strike contained the strength of 800 ancient mammoths. This kid is in for a hard time. Right when most of the surrounding spectators had similar thoughts in their hearts. Duan Lingtian made his move. He stood on the spot, unmoving like a mountain, and pushed out a palm that carried the might to split mountains to directly meet the city governor's daughter's palm strike head-on. In an instant, 711 ancient mammoth silhouettes appeared in the sky above Duan Lingtian, and they dashed out with an imposing aura that shot into the skies like a rainbow. 5th level nascent soul stage. A trace of surprise appeared within her watery eyes, as she obviously had never expected that Duan Lingtian would be able to possess this cultivation at such an age. But as far as she was concerned, Since Duan Lingtian wanted to exchange blows with her with the strength of 711 ancient mammoths, then it was simply asking for trouble. Watch out! Duan Lingtian naturally was able to guess the thoughts of the city governor's daughter when he saw the trace of disdain in her eyes, and he voiced out a warning right before their palms collided. Shameless boasting! The city governor's daughter shouted out in a tender voice. Her graceful figure flashed like a ball of flame that was sweeping out to envelope towards Duan Lingtian, as if wanting to swallow Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian's eyes narrowed when he saw the city governor's daughter approaching menacingly. Quake energy. Immediately, the origin energy on the palm Duan Lingtian slapped out started vibrating with a frequency that grew higher and higher. In next to no time, his quake energy had reached the limit. Finally, Duan Lingtian and the city governor's daughter's palm collided with each other. Bang! An enormous bang sounded out. The collision of the terrifying origin energy caused the surrounding air to freeze, and then the airflow flew out, transforming into circle after circle of ripples that swept out. Not only that, dust and dirt suffused the air on the arena, and it practically enveloped Duan Lingtian and the city governor's daughter completely, causing them to be vaguely visible. But even then, the surrounding crowd of spectators still watched the scene before them with concentration. As far as they were concerned, although the strength of the young man in the arena now wasn't bad and possessed a cultivation at the 5th level of the nascent soul stage, the city governor's daughter was a 6th level nascent soul stage martial artist, surpassing his cultivation by an entire level. As far as they were concerned, this collision of palms was without suspense, and the city governor's daughter would surely have the upper hand. But unfortunately, sometimes, imagination is tremendously different from reality, and the following scene caused them to be completely dumbstruck. Let go! They heard an explosive shout from the arena and the body of the city governor's daughter shook, then she actually swiftly retreated backwards. How could this be possible? The surrounding crowd of spectators looked at the scene before them with expressions of disbelief. Although the strength of the young man was strange as he possessed an extra 11 ancient mammoths worth of strength than an ordinary martial artist at the 5th level of the nascent soul stage. But even then, the strength contained within his palm strike was still the strength of 89 ancient mammoths lower than the city governor's daughter, right? How could he gain the upper hand? Are they acting? Many people couldn't help but think like this in their hearts. Presently, amongst the people present, besides Duan Lingtian, it was probably only the city governor's daughter herself that was the most clear of what happened earlier. The city governor's daughter looked at Duan Lingtian in disbelief, and hesitated for a moment before saying, "You used an inscription." Inscription. The words of the city governor's daughter entered into the ears of the surrounding spectators, and caused an uproar. FK. This kid actually used an inscription. No wonder he was able to defeat a stronger cultivation with a weaker cultivation and force the city governor's daughter to retreat in a head-on exchange, so it turns out that he used an inscription. Get down, shameless scum, like you have no qualifications to continue staying on the arena. Get down, comma. For a time, Duan Lingtian had become the target of all and aroused public wrath. HMPH. Right at this moment, a cold snort was like a thunderclap as it spread out from the arena and entered into the ears of everyone. For a time, the surroundings of the arena was completely deathly silent. She's ignorant, but could it be that all of you are ignorant as well? Subsequently, Duan Lingtian glanced indifferently at the surrounding crowd of spectators with an expression of disdain. When did all of you see me using an inscription? Besides that, if I did use an inscription, it would naturally leave behind traces of inscription utilization. Earlier, did any one of you see or even sense a trace of an inscription being used? The surrounding crowd of spectators instantly fell silent. He didn't use an inscription. Right at this moment, the azure-clothed old woman at the side of the arena glanced deeply at Duan Lingtian as she spoke slowly. Instantly, the surrounding crowd of spectators didn't have anything further to say. Thank you, Senior. Senior, you have good eyesight, unlike some people. Duan Lingtian nodded to the azure-clothed old woman, then looked at the city governor's daughter who wore a fiery red dress and seemed to be referring to something with his words. You. The city governor's daughter was angered to the point she stomped her feet, then she raised her hand and a crimson-red whip appeared. Flowing lights flashed around the whip, as if there were strands of burning flames blazing atop it. Along with the city governor's daughter flashing towards Duan Lingtian once again, origin energy flashed on the whip in her hand. Above her, another 380 ancient mammoth silhouettes appeared beside the existing 800 ancient mammoth silhouettes. Swoosh! The whip tore through the sky, seeming to have transformed into a venomous serpent that fiercely bit at Duan Lingtian. Grade 5 spirit weapon. Duan Lingtian's pupils constricted. Whirlwind. Duan Lingtian didn't dare hesitate as the origin energy in his entire body exploded out and quake energy emerged, and he seemed to have transformed into a gust of wind as he barely dodged that whip that approached like a venomous serpent that bit towards him. This whip contained the strength of 1,180 ancient mammoths. A grade 5 spirit whip that amplifies almost 48% of strength. What exactly is the background of this Phoenix Nest City's governor? At the same time that he dodged, Duan Lingtian was greatly astounded in his heart. After all, even if it was within the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, the number of grade 5 spirit weapons could be counted with the fingers on one's hands. Even if it was the 7-star sword sect that he was a part of, the sect that was known as the number 1 sect in the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, only possessed a single grade 5 spirit sword that was passed down from generation to generation. Now, daughter of the Phoenix Nest City's governor had casually withdrawn a grade 5 spirit weapon, and it caused Duan Lingtian to be speechless. Flower rain. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian heard a light shout, and it was the city governor's daughter that had pursued him in attack. Whip images that covered the sky flashed past the sky, seeming to have transformed into countless images of flowers that enveloped towards Duan Lingtian like a rain. What a profound martial skill. Duan Lingtian's eyes squinted. He was able to sense the whip images in the hands of the county governor's daughter had practically locked his position, and it caused him to have no place to dodge. These whip images that covered the sky seemed to have transformed into a heaven-encompassing net that enclosed him from top to bottom. Duan Lingtian had encountered similar martial skills in the past, however, those martial skills had flaws to take advantage of, after all. Whereas unless Duan Lingtian was able to dig a hole in the ground and crawl into it, otherwise, it would be difficult for him to charge out of the enclosed area of the whip images that covered the sky from the martial skill that the city governor's daughter utilized now. The surroundings of the arena was completely silent, and the gazes of everyone stared fixedly at the scene before them as they were extremely afraid they would miss a detail. Whoosh! Since he was unable to dodge, Duan Lingtian didn't dodge any longer, and the violet myrtle flexible sword appeared in his hand. Subsequently, origin energy violently arose on the violet myrtle flexible sword in his hand. In the sky, another 299 ancient mammoth silhouettes appeared beside the existing 711 ancient mammoth silhouettes. The violet myrtle flexible sword, a grade 6 spirit sword. Due to it being refined by Duan Lingtian himself, and he struck great luck during refinement, it was able to amplify his strength by 42%. At this moment, the strength of 1,010 ancient mammoths was condensed on the violet myrtle flexible sword in Duan Lingtian's hands. However, even then, Duan Lingtian's strength was still quite inferior when compared to the city governor's daughter. Even with his quake energy, it was difficult for him to surmount such a huge gap. Your spirit sword isn't bad, but unfortunately, you're bound to lose today. The voice of the city governor's daughter contained a trace of chilliness. The whip in her hand flashed out, and the whip images that covered the sky followed the whip like a shadow, surrounding Duan Lingtian and striking Duan Lingtian's body like drops of rain water. Are you that confident? Duan Lingtian's face revealed a brilliant smile. Instantly, within the origin energy that raged atop the violet myrtle flexible sword in Duan Lingtian's hands, a strand of strange aura had suddenly emerged. At the instant the strange aura emerged, the energy of heaven and earth above Duan Lingtian roiled once more. That is, the surrounding crowd of spectators were dumbstruck. Wind force. The pupils of the azure-clothed old woman standing at the side of the arena couldn't help but constrict. Wind force. Even the red-clothed middle-aged man high above in the sky and the gray-clothed old man beside him were both slightly moved now. They were able to discern that it was genuine wind force, and not a wind force seed. This little fellow really frightens people to death. The gray-clothed old man couldn't help but sigh with emotion. In the sky, the energy of heaven and earth surged, and it once again gave Duan Lingtian another 200 ancient mammoth silhouettes. Instantly, the strength of Duan Lingtian's sword increased to the limit. The strength of 1,210 ancient mammoths. Completely crushing the strength of 1,180 ancient mammoths possessed by the city governor's daughter. Under the gazes of everyone present, Duan Lingtian, who was within the whip images that covered the sky, had finally moved. Sword drawing arts. His sword swung out like a bolt of lightning, stabbing towards a side of the whip images. Duan Lingtian's spiritual force had already seen through the martial skill, flower rain, of the city governor's daughter, and he'd instantly found the true location of the whip and stabbed towards it. Dragon's finishing touch. Duan Lingtian instantly fused the high-grade profound rank martial skill, dragon's finishing touch, that was at the perfection stage, into the sword strike. Clang! A light clang resounded out as the origin energies collided with each other. At this moment, Duan Ling Tian seemed to have already seen the scene of the city governor's daughter forced to retreat once again. That is, however, instantly, Duan Ling Tian noticed that a strand of energy had suddenly surged out from the point the tip of his violet myrtle flexible sword struck. He clearly saw that in the sky above the city governor's daughter, another 120 ancient mammoth silhouettes appeared beside the existing 1,180 ancient mammoth silhouettes. 426 Chapter 427, Feng Wu Dao. The 120 ancient mammoth silhouettes that had appeared suddenly changed into 80 plus in the blink of an eye, then they slowly increased. 90 ancient mammoths, 100 ancient mammoths, ceaselessly fluctuating with a peak of 127 ancient mammoth silhouettes. Force seed. Duan Ling Tian's pupils constricted, but when his gaze encountered the spirit whip in the hands of the city governor's daughter, he noticed instead that the origin energy flowing around the spirit whip seemed to have a strand of a strange fiery aura. Duan Ling Tian was extremely familiar with this aura. It was the aura of flames. Fire force, it's a fire force seed. Duan Ling Tian distinguished the ability that the city governor's daughter had utilized now. In the next moment, Duan Ling Tian's face sank. He felt an enormous force pour into the spirit sword in his hand from the spirit whip. She was taking the initiative to attack and gain the advantage. Quake energy. Even when Duan Ling Tian used quake energy in time, he was only able to neutralize a portion of the energy. Whirlwind. Following the direction of this energy, Duan Ling Tian stomped on the ground and flashed out like a gust of wind, then stood in the distance as he looked at the city governor's daughter from afar. If I knew she'd comprehended a fire force seed, I would have utilized quake energy at the beginning. Duan Ling Tian sighed inwardly, and he felt it was a slight pity. Duan Ling Tian originally thought that even if he didn't utilize quake energy, his strength was sufficient to crush this city governor's daughter. But the facts proved that he'd underestimated the city governor's daughter. The city governor's daughter was a genius in the martial Dao that had comprehended a fire force seed. In terms of natural talent, she wasn't inferior to him. In terms of comprehension ability, she was the best amongst all the younger generation he'd met. Even the demonic Lotus Blade sect's saber young master from the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom was far inferior to her. If Duan Ling Tian had utilized his quake energy at the limit when he struck out with his sword, he'd already have crushed the city governor's daughter and obtained the final victory. Unfortunately, he didn't utilize it. Even when he utilized quake energy in time later on and neutralized a portion of the energy from the city governor's daughter, yet he was also unable to counter. Increasing the quake energy to the limit required a process. Earlier, there was utterly no time for Duan Ling Tian to gradually develop his quake energy to the limit. On the groom search competition arena, Duan Ling Tian and the city governor's daughter stood facing each other. Origin energy still raged and leapt about on the violet myrtle flexible sword in Duan Ling Tian's hand. Above him, 1,210 lifelike ancient mammoth silhouettes accumulated force while waiting to be deployed. Origin energy similarly coiled around the spirit whip in the hands of the city governor's daughter. Whereas above her, the number of ancient mammoth silhouettes fluctuated extremely unstably between 1,260 plus to 1,307. Moreover, there was no indication that the fire force seed would be die out. The fire force seed of this city governor's daughter is practically at the peak of what is able to be comprehended by a nascent soul stage martial artist. To a certain extent, she's already able to completely control the fire force seed, and it wouldn't occasionally die out like the saber young master's saber force seed. Duan Ling Tian thought in his heart, and he felt heartfelt admiration towards the city governor's daughter before him. A 20-year-old girl possessing such ability was simple monstrous. Monstrous to the point it struck terror in the hearts of others. When Duan Ling Tian stared at the city governor's daughter, she looked at him as well. Is it him? The city governor's daughter's pair of beautiful eyes emitted a trace of wonder, and besides that, it also concealed a trace of embarrassment that was similar to a young girl beginning to think about love. Of course, this was something that Duan Ling Tian didn't notice. When Duan Ling Tian and the city governor's daughter stood apart in confrontation, the surroundings of the arena went into an uproar. I really never expected that this young man was a freak. Yeah, I feel that his strength isn't much inferior to the city governor's daughter. But, his strength seems to still be inferior to the city governor's daughter. So what if it's inferior? Could it be that you've forgotten that his strength was inferior to the city governor's daughter earlier, but he still forced her to retreat? For a time, numerous burning gazes descended onto Duan Lingtian. Elder Kong, the strength of this little fellow seems to be slightly strange. Besides that, his origin energy seems to be able to produce some type of vibration with extremely high frequency, and the feeling it gives me is like, the red-clothed middle-aged man's firm face was covered in surprised. Demon beast, worm python. The gray-clothed old man continued the red-clothed man's words, and he had a serious expression. Exactly, it's precisely the worm python. He actually mastered the origin energy utilization method of the worm python to defeat a stronger opponent. It's truly shocking. The red-clothed middle-aged man sighed with emotion, and his words contained slight disbelief mixed within. Perhaps, if he knew that the third form of the cultivation technique that Duan Lingtian cultivated, the Nine Dragons War Sovereign technique, was the worm python form, he wouldn't think like this. The young miss isn't a match for him. The gray-clothed old man shook his head, and a strand of bright light flashed within his muddy eyes. Even though there was an extremely great distance between them, he seemed as if he was able to clearly see the violet figure in the groom search competition arena. You aren't a match for me. On the arena, Duan Lingtian looked at the city governor's daughter. HMPH, we'll only know if I'm a match for you or not after I try. The city governor's daughter shouted out in a tender voice. Her graceful and slender figure flashed out once again, seeming to have transformed into an enraged fire phoenix that wanted to burn Duan Lingtian into ash. Duan Lingtian was able to perceive the rage within the words of the city governor's daughter. Flower rain. The city governor's daughter swung the grade 5 spirit whip in her hand, and the flower rain appeared once again to envelop Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian's face became grim, yet he stood on the spot, not moving like a mountain. Origin energy lightly started trembling with a frequency that grew high and higher atop the violet myrtle flexible sword in his hand. Quake energy at the limit. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. The whip images that covered the skies poured down, seeming to have transformed into swift droplets of rainwater that formed a heaven-encompassing net that wanted to bind Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian made his move. Sword drawing arts. His sword swung out like a bolt of lightning, flashing straight towards the grade 5 spirit whip that was seen through and locked on by his spiritual force. Dragon's finishing touch. The violet myrtle flexible sword drew an arc before swiftly stabbing out, and a piercing howl resounded out as it descended onto the spirit whip, breaking the martial skill of the city governor's daughter once again. Let go. Duan Lingtian shook his hand as he shouted out explosively, wanted to make the city governor's daughter let go of the spirit whip in time. But he quickly noticed that the city governor's daughter actually had no intention of letting go. In the end, Duan Lingtian twisted the violet myrtle flexible sword in his hand to disperse the origin energy of the city governor's daughter on the spirit whip, then his other hand flashed out to grab a hold of her hand before seizing the spirit whip and tossing it aside. This woman is too headstrong. Duan Lingtian sighed in his heart. In next to no time, he finally noticed softness in his hand, and only now did he realize that he was still holding the delicate hand of the city governor's daughter. Duan Lingtian noticed that at this moment, the city governor's daughter wasn't furious as before. She glanced at him before lowering her head with a ladylike appearance. Compared to before, she was like a completely different person. Not good. This scene caused a bad premonition to arise in Duan Lingtian's heart, and he hurriedly let go and took a few steps back. It was a good battle. Hee, big brother Lingtian, do you want to see how she looks? The little gold mouse's voice transmission entered into Duan Lingtian's ears. If you want to see, then I'll go pull off her veil right now. Don't act recklessly. Duan Lingtian glared at the little gold mouse as he stopped her. If the little gold mouse were to pull off her veil, then the city governor's daughter would say, the first man who sees my face must be my husband. Then wouldn't he suffer this for no reason? This little brother has won. Little brother, congratulations on becoming the city governor's son-in-law. Congratulations little brother, In next to no time, Duan Lingtian noticed that the surging crowd around the arena were actually congratulating him, and it caused him to be speechless. Didn't I say before that I only came for the soul transformation fruit? Is there something wrong with the ears of these people? Right when Duan Lingtian was intending to provide an explanation. Ha 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 ha, a hearty laugh resounded out from the horizon and became clearer and clearer. Duan Lingtian raised his head to look over. He saw a crimson-red figure descending from the sky and quickly arrived before him. This was a middle-aged man in a crimson-red robe with a dignified expression between his brows, and his eyes that were looking at Duan Lingtian right now were emitting bright lights. Lord City Governor. A wave of respectful voice sounded out by Duan Lingtian's ears. It was the surrounding crowd of people that were bowing to the red-robed middle-aged man. City Governor. The Phoenix Nest City's governor. Duan Lingtian came to a sudden understanding. Good, very good, kid, from today onwards, you're the son-in-law of Feng Wudao. The Phoenix Nest City's governor, Feng Wudao, looked at the Duan Lingtian as he nodded in satisfaction, as if he was like an old man that was more interested the more he looked at his son-in-law. Congratulations City Governor. Congratulations City Governor. The surrounding crowd of people all congratulated Feng Wudao. Thank you everyone. Feng Wudao laughed and was in an excellent mood. City Governor Feng. Duan Lingtian glanced at the young woman that stood by Feng Wudao's side with a lowered head and slightly shy expression, and he laughed bitterly. I think you've misunderstood. I ascended this arena today only for the sake of that soul transformation fruit, and not for your daughter. As soon as Duan Lingtian's words sounded out, the joyous atmosphere in the scene stopped abruptly. Swoosh, 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 numerous gazes from all around the arena descended onto Duan Lingtian. The crowd of people were all shocked by what Duan Lingtian said. Only now did some people recall that when the young man ascended the arena earlier, he did indeed say this. But no one took his words seriously at that time. What did you say? Feng Wudao's face became grim, and in almost an instant, a formidable imposing manner swept out from him to press onto Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian's face went pale. The imposing manner of Feng Wudao descended onto him and pressed on him to the point his internal organs shook. In the end, Duan Lingtian was truly unable to endure it and his body shook. He was forcefully made to spit out a mouthful of blood. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian struggled to raise his head and look at Feng Wudao in astonishment, and he had a fearful expression. The strength of this Feng Wudao is so strong, I'm not afraid of it in the slightest even if it's the imposing manner of an ordinary void initiation stage expert. But his imposing manner is actually able to injure me. Waves of coldness abruptly arose within Duan Lingtian's heart. 427 Chapter 428, Feng Tian Wu. Kid, do you think the groom search competition my city governor's estate held as a game? Or do you think no one wants my daughter? That you can choose to marry her at a whim? Feng Wudao glanced coldly at Duan Lingtian as he shouted in a deep voice. Presently, a trace of surprise that was difficult to notice flashed within Feng Wudao's eyes when he saw Duan Lingtian actually only spat out a mouthful of blood when enveloped by his imposing manner. Originally, as far as he was concerned, his imposing manner was sufficient to press a mere fifth-level nascent soul stage martial artist like Duan Lingtian flat on the ground. Where do you place the dignity of the city governor's estate by doing this? Where do you place the face of my daughter? The voice of Feng Wudao suddenly became stern. Whoosh! An even stronger imposing manner flashed out to sweep towards Duan Lingtian. Instantly, Duan Lingtian's ghastly pale expression became deathly pale, and he felt his entire body, placed within the center of a storm, on the verge of collapse. Duan Lingtian glanced at the young woman who stood by Feng Wudao's side with a pair of slightly red eyes, and smiled bitterly while he spat out another mouthful of blood. City Governor Feng, I told your daughter when I ascended the arena, I only came for the soul transformation fruit. You really don't like me. The city governor's daughter's eyes contained tears that were about to drop as she stared at Duan Lingtian, and her gentle and moving voice contained slight agitation mixed within. Duan Lingtian sighed. I haven't even seen your appearance, how can I say I like you or not? But, I did indeed come here for the soul transformation fruit this time, and have no other intentions. If I can't only take the soul transformation fruit, then I'm sorry for disturbing you. Farewell. I'm sorry. Duan Lingtian looked at the city governor's daughter and smiled apologetically, then turned around, intending to leave. Do you think you can come and go to my city governor's estate as you please? The instant Duan Lingtian turned around, he heard a voice seeming to condense into a sharp sword that fiercely pierced into his ears, shocking his eardrums to the point they trembled. A force that he was unable to rival instantly spread throughout his body. In the next moment, he felt his entire body become powerless and his consciousness gradually becoming blurred. The crowd of people before him gradually vanished before his eyes. Squeak squeak, before he fainted, he heard the little gold mouse's enraged cry sound out by his ears, then he completely lost consciousness. When Duan Lingtian regained consciousness, he felt his entire body ache. So painful. Duan Lingtian opened his eyes, and only now did he notice that he was lying on a luxurious bed within a spacious room. You've woken up. Right at this moment, the room's door was opened and a fiery red beautiful figure walked in, and she held a tray containing a bowl of fragrant meat porridge. Duan Lingtian's stomach growled without putting up a resistance the instant he smelled the fragrance of the porridge. Duan Lingtian looked at the red-clothed young woman who wore a veil, the city governor's daughter, and he shook his slightly dazed head as he asked. How did I get here? You were knocked out by my father, and you've been unconscious for 3 days and nights. My father's temper is like that, so don't take it to heart. The city governor's daughter placed the porridge at the side and helped Duan Lingtian up slightly before removing her veil, then she held up the bowl of porridge and scooped a spoonful before putting it before her mouth and blowing. She passed a spoon to Duan Lingtian as she smiled lightly. It's been 3 days, you're surely hungry already, right? But, Duan Lingtian was currently dumbstruck. He was completely dumbstruck at the instant the city governor's daughter removed her veil. When the veil dropped down, appearing before Duan Lingtian's eyes was a dazzling beauty with an absolutely beautiful face, her black eyebrows like paintings, and her eyes like 2 drops of autumn water. Her fine nose, scarlet lips, white teeth, and naturally sweet features drew out a perfect face that was breathtakingly beautiful. She was just like a fairy that had fallen into the mortal realm. At this moment, Duan Lingtian felt his heart completely calm down because of this young woman's appearance. You, so beautiful, Duan Lingtian muttered. The young woman's beauty was breathtaking. You should drink your porridge. The young woman's beautiful face flushed red, as if blood could drop out from it, and she was gentle like water. Compared to the valiant young woman that fought Duan Lingtian in the arena earlier, she was like a completely different person. Fiery in action, but like water when calm. This was the impression Duan Lingtian had of the young woman in his heart. Duan Lingtian allowed the young woman to feed him a mouthful of porridge, and he felt warmth arise in his body when the porridge entered his stomach. I still don't know your name. The young woman asked timidly. I'm called Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian lightly smiled and looked at her. What about you? Feng Tianwu. The young woman smiled sweetly. I'm truly sorry about what happened before, I was really not prepared. Duan Lingtian had an apologetic expression when he recalled the other day. Feng Tianwu seemed to recall what happened that day when she heard this, then she faintly sighed. You, don't blame my father, he did it for me. Perhaps, it's truly because your conditions really conform to the person in my destiny, so my father wasn't willing to let you leave like that. This person in your destiny. When Duan Lingtian heard her, he was unable to make heads or tails from it. What destiny? Feng Tianwu continued to feed the porridge to Duan Lingtian and slowly explained. Actually, my father, Grandpa Kong, and Grandma Shu only came to this city a few years ago. At that time, this city wasn't called Phoenix Nest City yet. Duan Lingtian was shocked as he never imagined that the city governor, Feng Wudao, was actually not someone from this city. After Feng Wudao arrived, he'd become the city governor in a short amount of years, and even obtained the respect of the residents of Phoenix Nest City. Such ability was shocking. Then where are all of you from? Duan Lingtian asked curiously. The Darken Dynasty, Feng Tianwu said slowly. Darken Dynasty. Duan Lingtian was shocked. But when he recalled Feng Tianwu's natural talent in the martial Dao and Feng Wudao's unfathomable strength, he came to an understanding. Perhaps, only someone from the Darken Dynasty was able to possess such terrifying natural talent and strength. The destiny you spoke of earlier is? Duan Lingtian asked curiously when he recalled what Feng Tianwu said earlier. Feng Tianwu faintly sighed as she said slowly, that is the destiny my great-grandmother divined for me. She was a powerful diviner and the person I respected the most. But for the sake of divining a way of survival for an ominous person like me, she wasted the last 20 years of her lifespan. As she finished speaking, Feng Tianwu's beautiful face was covered in tears. Diviner. Duan Lingtian was completely puzzled when he heard this. Could it be that this diviner was similar to the fortune tellers of his previous life? But Duan Lingtian had never believed these things in his previous life. Don't be sad, since your great-grandmother chose to do this, then it's sufficient to show she loved you very dearly. I presume that if she was aware in the afterlife, she wouldn't be willing to see you like this. Although Duan Lingtian didn't believe in divining or destiny, Feng Tianwu's current appearance that was like a pear blossom bathing in rain still caused him to be unable to bear it, and he hurriedly consoled her. Under his consoling, Feng Tianwu finally recovered back to her previous self. Do you think that the so-called destiny is extremely illusory and unreal? Feng Tianwu looked at Duan Ling Tian's eyes and asked abruptly. Feng Tianwu's beautiful eyes were pure and flawless, like two beautiful gems that caused Duan Ling Tian's feelings to surge. Duan Ling Tian didn't deny when faced with this question of Feng Tianwu's, and he nodded. Feng Tianwu slowly said, "At the beginning, I was unwilling to believe it as well, until that day in the groom search competition's arena when I myself acknowledged that my strength was inferior to you. Only at that moment did I believe that destiny my great-grandmother divined wasn't illusory and unreal." What do you mean? Duan Ling Tian looked at Feng Tianwu in interest. Do you know why my father brought me to this city at the extreme south of Darkstone Empire? Feng Tianwu answered her own question. It's precisely because of the destiny my great-grandmother divined. According to my great-grandmother, I would encounter the man in my destiny when I was 20 years old at the southernmost city of the Darkstone Empire, Phoenix Nest City. As she spoke up to hear, a wisp of a blush appeared on Feng Tianwu's peerlessly beautiful face. So, after my father became the governor of this city, he changed the name of the city to Phoenix Nest City. My great-grandmother said that the man in my destiny is from the south, and he would appear at a certain time during the year I turned 20. She asked my father to hold a groom search competition for me at that time, and use the soul transformation fruit she left behind as my dowry. Feng Tianwu continued, I just turned 20 this year. My father believed my great-grandmother's words, so he held a groom search competition during the time frame my great-grandmother spoke of, only for the sake of waiting for the appearance of the man in my destiny. The 10 days of the groom search competition was the time frame my great-grandmother divined that man would appear. According to what my great-grandmother said, that man's age doesn't exceed 25 and would defeat me during the groom search competition. Based on my strength, not to mention in the remote cities of the Darkstone Empire, even if it's in the entire Darken Dynasty, a young genius that is able to defeat me while being below 25 years of age is an existence like phoenix feathers and Qilin horns. During the first 9 days of the groom search competition, although many people had come, there wasn't a single person that could withstand a single move from me. When I saw the arrival of the third day, a thought arose within my heart, perhaps, it really was my great-grandmother who was mistaken. Only until you appeared and defeated me did I know that the destiny my great-grandmother wasted 20 years of her lifespan to divine wasn't fruitless. After she finished speaking, Feng Tianwu looked at Duan Ling Tian and asked, Are you from the south? Feng Tianwu's words caused Duan Ling Tian to be unable to regain his senses for a while. To him, everything Feng Tianwu said was too profound. Destiny. He didn't believe in this. Exactly, I'm from the south, but, perhaps all of this is only a coincidence. Duan Ling Tian said to Feng Tianwu. He was from the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, and the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom was indeed to the south of the Darkstone Empire. Coincidence. Feng Tianwu shook her head, then went silent for a moment before saying, Don't worry, if you're unwilling, then I won't force you. I didn't mean it that way. Presently, Duan Ling Tian didn't know what to say. 428 Chapter 429, Fire Spirit Body. Although he said it was a coincidence, he was still extremely shocked in his heart. After all, if all this was true, then the great-grandmother of the young woman before him was truly inhuman, as she was even able to divine when he would arrive at Phoenix Nest City. The soul transformation fruit was still the most important. Earlier, Feng Tianwu had explained the origins of the soul transformation fruit in her words earlier. That was the dowry the old woman had left for Feng Tianwu. In other words, if he wanted the soul transformation fruit, then he must marry Feng Tianwu. If it was before, at the time he didn't have Ke and Li Fei by his side, he might have directly agreed and married Feng Tianwu. After all, Feng Tianwu's conditions weren't bad in any way. She possessed both a beautiful appearance that was like a flower and a shocking background. But now, with Ke and Li Fei, it was equal to having an extra responsibility. If he could, he didn't want to hurt the two girls. Moreover, what he felt for Feng Tianwu now was mostly admiration and not affection, nor was he struck by desire like when he met Li Fei that day. Perhaps, it was because he already had Ke and Li Fei that he would be like this. All in all, this type of feeling was extremely complicated. I didn't mean it in that way, I just feel it's slightly abrupt. Moreover, both of us have only just become acquainted and have no feelings between each other at all. Could it be that you're willing to be married to a person you don't know? Duan Ling Tian asked Feng Tianwu. Feng Tianwu's cherry lips slightly moved when she heard this. She seemed as if she wanted to say something yet didn't say it. Big brother Duan, I'm going out first, take care of your injuries properly. Feng Tianwu sighed faintly, then held the tray that had the empty bowl on it and left, leaving behind a beautiful back for Duan Lingtian to see. She seems to have something that's difficult to voice out. Duan Lingtian frowned, as he clearly saw the actions of Feng Tianwu earlier. Swoosh! A howl of the wind sounded out and the room's door was knocked open with a bang, then a gold light shot onto the edge of the bed by Duan Lingtian's side. Big brother Lingtian, you're finally awake. The little gold mouse looked at Duan Lingtian and danced with joy, and as she communicated with Duan Lingtian via voice transmission, it seemed to contain slight excitement mixed within. Little gold, what happened after I fell unconscious that day? Duan Lingtian asked curiously. Oh, you were knocked out by Feng Wudao that day. Ash heard the little gold mouse's voice transmission. Duan Lingtian obtained a certain level of understanding of everything that happened that day. Feng Wudao didn't make it difficult for him and little gold in the end. He brought Duan Lingtian and the little gold mouse to the city governor's estate, and he even gave Duan Lingtian a great recovery pill. Big brother Lingtian, big sister Tianwu isn't bad, do you want to marry her? The little gold mouse blinked her jade green eyes as she sized up Duan Lingtian with interest. Duan Lingtian glared at the little gold mouse. You little fellow, you're just a stinking kid, don't meddle in the affairs of grown-ups. My injuries have almost recovered, accompany me on a walk outside. Right when Duan Lingtian intended to change his clothes and leave the room with the little gold mouse. Knock, knock, the sound of the door being knocked sounded out. It isn't locked. Along with Duan Lingtian's reply, the unlocked door was opened, and an aged figure slowly walked in. Duan Lingtian recognized this person with just a glance. It was precisely the azure-clothed old woman that stood at the side of the groom search competition arena that day, and the Grandma Shu that Feng Tianwu spoke of. Thump! A scene that caused disbelief in Duan Lingtian appeared. Grandma Shu didn't say anything before walking over before his bed and directly kneeling on the ground. Senior, what are you doing? Duan Lingtian has a shocked expression as he hurriedly got down off the bed, wanting to help Grandma Shu up. But unfortunately, Grandma Shu's cultivation was much stronger than his own, and as she knelt there, no matter how he pulled, he had no way of holding Grandma Shu up. Senior, Duan Lingtian laughed bitterly. No matter what it is, stand up and speak of it. When he saw Grandma Shu making no reaction, Duan Lingtian straightened his face. If you still don't stand up, then I'll leave directly. Grandma Shu stood up when she heard this. Young Master Lingtian. Grandma Shu respectfully bowed to Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian wasn't surprised that Grandma Shu knew his name. Presumably, Grandma Shu had already met with Feng Tianwu earlier. Senior, if there's anything, then just speak frankly. Young Master Lingtian, the young miss ought to have told you about the matter regarding her destiny, right? Grandma Shu asked. Yes. Duan Lingtian nodded. Then do you know that if her destined man doesn't become one with her, she won't be able to live past the age of 30? Grandma Shu sighed. What? Duan Lingtian's face went grim. Senior, what exactly is going on? I knew it, the young miss is so kind, and would have surely not told you this. Grandma Shu continued. Young miss is innately born different from an ordinary person, she possesses the extremely rare fire spirit body. Fire spirit body. Duan Lingtian was stunned when he heard Grandma Shu, and when he searched the memories of the rebirth martial emperor and found out what innate fire spirit body meant, his face was filled with shock. The fire spirit body was an extremely overbearing innate spirit body, and it was extremely rare. In the history of Cloud Continent, not only had the fire spirit body appeared, but practically all the other spirit bodies like the water spirit body, lightning spirit body, and wind spirit body had appeared. But the possessors of these innate spirit bodies rarely survived past the age of 30. Only because once they were 30, the energy of the innate spirit body would completely explode out, and the possessor of the spirit body would be unable to endure the pressure and directly explode from the overflowing energy. The rebirth martial emperor had experienced 2 lifetimes and had once encountered a possessor of a water spirit body. The possessor of the water spirit body had extraordinary natural talent before the age of 30, and relied on the water spirit body to comprehend 3rd level water concept once the possessor's cultivation stepped into the 7th level of the void prying stage. When the possessor of the water spirit body exerted all abilities, the strength displayed was even able to completely crush ordinary 1st level and 2nd level void initiation stage martial artist. However, at the age of 30, this possessor of the water spirit body was unable to endure the energy erupting out from within his body and exploded from the overflowing energy. That person was a good friend of the rebirth martial emperor in his first lifetime, and the only spirit body possessor that the rebirth martial emperor had encountered in his 2 lifetimes. It was precisely because of this good friend that the rebirth martial emperor had once gained in-depth knowledge of the various spirit bodies through various ancient books. In the end, he obtained a conclusion. Practically all possessors of these miraculous innate spirit bodies are unable to live past the age of 30 because the energy of the innate spirit body would erupt when the possessor turned 30. Whereas if one wanted to solve this problem, then there were only 2 methods. The first, break through to the void transformation stage by the age of 30. According to the determination, if one's cultivation breaks through to the void transformation stage, then one can forcefully withstand the eruption of the spirit body's energy when one is 30. Otherwise, even if one is at the 9th level of the void interpretation stage, one would still die without a doubt. But unfortunately, it was extremely difficult to break through to the void transformation stage by the age of 30, and it was as good as impossible. The second, find a possessor of a spirit body of an opposite attribute, then become one with that person. In this way, the energy of the 2 spirit bodies will be able to be relieved through the union of yin and yang, and when the possessors are at the age of 30, the condition of the energy of the spirit body erupting wouldn't occur any longer. Like Feng Tianwu, she was a possessor of the fire spirit body. If she was able to find man with the water spirit body or ice spirit body and become husband and wife with him, then once they become one, they could stop the calamity before it even occurs. I never imagined that she's actually a possessor of the fire spirit body. Duan Lingtian sighed and felt sympathy for Feng Tianwu. According to the memories of the rebirth martial emperor, to a certain extent, possessors of spirit bodies could be said to be existences that were given providence by the heavens. Because their natural talent and comprehension ability were usually extremely high. Especially when comprehending force, they possessed an exceptional advantage. Just like Feng Tian, her cultivation was only at the 6th level of the nascent soul stage, but she'd already comprehended a fire force seed to the peak of comprehension. Once she broke through to the void prying stage, she would be able to directly comprehend elementary fire force. However, although the possessors of spirit bodies possessed natural talent and comprehension ability that caused jealousy and envy, they had to face a calamity of life and death at the age of 30. In the history of Cloud Continent, spirit body possessors rarely lived past the age of 30. Senior, since I don't possess the water spirit body nor the ice spirit body, then even if I marry Tianwu and become one with her, I'm afraid I'm unable to get rid of her crisis. Duan Lingtian looked at Grandma Shu and sighed. I don't know about the water spirit body or ice spirit body, all I know is the destiny that the Lord Oracle divined for the young miss, and you are the man in the young miss's destiny. So long as you become one with the young miss, you will naturally be able to get rid of the young miss's crisis. Grandma Shu shook her head, as she possessed blind confidence towards the Lord Oracle she spoke of. Duan Lingtian was speechless. Isn't this just doing things recklessly? Firstly, he didn't have the ability to allow Feng Tianwu to possess a cultivation at the void transformation stage by the age of 30. Secondly, he didn't possess the water spirit body or the ice spirit body, and he was unable to relieve the energy of the fire spirit body within Feng Tianwu. So, as far as he was concerned, even if Feng Tianwu was married to him, he would be unable to help her. Grandma Shu, Duan Lingtian hadn't finished speaking when the old woman had knelt down once again, causing him to be speechless. This Grandma Shu was a void-prying stage expert at any rate, yet knelt willfully before a mere nascent soul stage martial artist like him and had no bearing whatsoever. If Duan Lingtian were to use a word to describe it, then it would probably only be shameless. But Duan Lingtian knew clearly in his heart that the reason Grandma Shu was like this was precisely because she cared too much about Feng Tianwu. Duan Lingtian sighed. Grandma Shu, please get up, marriage is no trifling matter. Even if I'm willing to do this, I still have to seek the opinions of my family, right? In the end, under Duan Lingtian's persuasion, Grandma Shu finally stood up. Right at this moment, young Mrs. Husband, the Lord City Governor asked you to head to the audience hall. A voice entered into the room and entered into Duan Lingtian's ears. Young Mrs. Husband, the corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth twitched. Could this be considered as being forced to get married? That city governor Feng is looking for me, could it be it's also because of the matter with Tianwu? Duan Lingtian's brows knit and he bid his farewell to Grandma Shu before bringing the little gold mouse along and walking out of the room. Under the lead of the servant, he headed to the audience hall. 429 Chapter 430, Apology. City Governor's Estate, Audience Hall. Duan Lingtian walked into the audience hall and with a glance, he saw the city governor, Feng Wudao, sitting at the host's seat at the center. Feng Tianwu wore her veil once again and stood by Feng Wudao's side. Although her appearance was concealed by the veil, her beautiful body was unobstructed, causing one's heart to palpitate. Besides Feng Wudao and his daughter, there were another 4 people in the audience hall. 2 beautifully dressed middle-aged men with extraordinary bearing, a young man with a severed arm, and a young woman. Squeak squeak, at the same time that Duan Lingtian recognized the young man with a severed arm and the young woman, the little gold mouse that stood on his shoulder looked at the young man with a severed arm as well, then she bared her fangs and brandished her claws at him, and her jade-green eyes were filled with provocation. This young man with a severed arm was precisely the young man that wanted to buy Little Gold forcefully in the restaurant but failed, then wanted to attack him but had an arm crippled by Little Gold in the end instead. He seemed to be called Chong Wei. City Governor. Duan Lingtian looked at Feng Wudao and lightly nodded in greeting. Feng Wudao nodded then looked at the 2 middle-aged men and said slowly, "These 2 are the patriarchs of our Phoenix Nest City's Chong clan and Qian clan, they came to see you." Duan Lingtian's brows raised and he looked at the Chong clan and Qian clan patriarch. The cultivations of the 2 weren't ordinary as they were both existences at the void-prying stage. "Have you come to denounce my crimes?" Duan Lingtian looked at the 2 and smiled indifferently. "I don't dare." The Chong clan patriarch shook his head hurriedly, then raised his hand to withdraw a luminous pearl the size of an adult's fist and passed it to Duan Lingtian as he said humbly. "Young master, my son was rude a few days ago. I hope that you don't harbor grievances for his past wrongs and don't fuss about it with my son." Duan Lingtian's gaze descended onto the luminous peak in the Chong clan's patriarch's hand and he was slightly surprised. If such a huge luminous pearl were to be sold at an auction, it would at least be auctioned off for 10 million gold. To a certain extent, this type of luminous pearl could be considered to be a rare treasure. "Don't mention it, Patriarch Chong, it was only a small matter and I've already forgotten it." Although he said this, the speed of Duan Lingtian's hand wasn't slow in the slightest and he swiftly received the luminous peak in the Chong clan's patriarch's hand, then weighed it in his hand for a moment. "Then I'll thank Patriarch Chong for this generous gift. As long as you like it." The Chong clan's patriarch forced out a smile, yet his heart was bleeding. This luminous pearl was something he'd bid 30 million gold to buy at an auction in the Darkstone Empire's imperial city. Now, it was given away just like this. But he knew clearly in his heart that he must gift it away. The person before him was the son-in-law of the Lord City Governor. As the patriarch of the Chong clan that had a legacy of hundreds of years, he'd seen the rise of the city governor, Feng Wudao, with his own 2 eyes. Feng Wudao had only come to their city a few years ago. He'd only just arrived at the city when he domineeringly defeated the governor of this city at that time, then entered the city governor's estate and became the new owner of this city, and had even changed the name of this city to Phoenix Nest City. No one knew how strong the city governor's strength was. They only knew that after the previous city governor was defeated by Feng Wudao and driven out of Phoenix Nest City, he was not resigned to his fate in his heart, and he'd found a formidable void initiation martial artist to deal with Feng Wudao. In the end, the outcome was that he and the void initiation stage expert he found had died. From that time onwards, no one within the Phoenix Nest City dared question Feng Wudao's strength. "Young master, this is our Qian clan's apology." The Qian clan's patriarch withdrew a necklace made from a string of rainbow-colored gems and passed it to Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian was able to discern that the string of 7 gems of various colors were all purely natural gems and were of extraordinary value. In terms of worth, the 7 gems combined weren't inferior to the luminous pearl that the Chong clan's patriarch had given him. "Thank you Patriarch Qian." Duan Lingtian wasn't courteous in the slightest as he put it away, accepting both the Chong clan and Qian clan's apologies. "Don't worry patriarchs, I was just playing with Brother Chong and young Miss Qian that day, it was only a small matter and I won't take it to heart," Duan Lingtian said to the 2 patriarchs. It caused the corners of the Qian clan's patriarch's mouth to twitch. Chong Hui's expression was extremely unsightly. "Playing? You were playing and you crippled one of my arms." Of course, he didn't dare say it out loud. He knew that since that young man before him was already the son-in-law of the Phoenix Nest City's governor, even if they fully expended the strength of the Qian clan and the Chong clan, they would still be unable to do anything to the young man. Just the city governor alone was enough to sweep through their entire Chong and Qian clans. So they could only endure this suffering. When they saw Duan Lingtian didn't have any intention of pursuing the matter, the 4 people from the Chong and Qian clans heaved a sigh of relief. After they bid their farewells to the city governor, Feng Wudao, the 4 of them left directly. Duan Lingtian. Suddenly, Feng Wudao shouted out, causing Duan Lingtian's mind to shake, and turned to look at Feng Wudao with a bitter smile on his face. He knew that what ought to come, will come. City governor. Duan Lingtian looked at Feng Wudao with a neither arrogant nor humble manner. Are you really unwilling to marry my daughter? As Feng Wudao spoke, a terrifying imposing manner swept out to envelop Duan Lingtian. Right when Duan Lingtian's face became grim and he intended to arouse the origin energy in his entire body to resist it. Swoosh! A gust of fragrant wind assaulted his nose, and a beautiful figure had blocked before him, obstructing Feng Wudao's imposing manner. Pooh! The graceful and delicate figure was forced to spit out a mouthful of blood and her body was on the verge of collapse. Wu! Feng Wudao's expression went pale as he hurriedly withdrew his imposing manner, then he transformed into a gust of wind that instantly arrived before Feng Tianwu and fed a medicinal pill to her. Feng Tianwu's face was ghastly pale and only recovered after a short while, and at the moment she'd just recovered, she said to Feng Wudao, "Father, don't make things difficult for big brother Duan." Tianwu. Duan Lingtian's heart shook when he saw Feng Tianwu suffering an injury because of him. Duan Lingtian took a deep breath and looked at Feng Wudao. City governor, Grandma Shu had already told me about Tianwu. I have a certain level of understanding of the fire spirit body as well. But I'm not a possessor of a water spirit body or ice spirit body, and I'm afraid I'm unable to help Tianwu. Big brother Duan, you know everything. Feng Tianwu's beautiful face had only just recovered some color with great difficulty, and when she heard Duan Lingtian she couldn't help but look over. Duan Lingtian nodded and sighed. Tianwu, you should have told me earlier. If I really had a way to help you then I wouldn't stand idly by. Unconsciously, Feng Tianwu's beautiful face was tainted with a blush when she heard Duan Lingtian. Kid, what you mean is that you're willing to marry Tianwu? Feng Wudao looked at Duan Lingtian with a sparkling gaze. City governor, I feel that what you're thinking in your heart isn't to marry Tianwu away, but it's instead to relieve the disaster of the fire spirit body, right? Duan Lingtian didn't answer Feng Wudao and questioned him instead. Exactly. Feng Wudao nodded then said, but, according to the divination of my great-grandmother who's also the only oracle in the darkened dynasty that can spy through the secrets of the heavens, Tianwu's can only ward off the calamity that she must face at the age of 30 if she becomes one with the man in her destiny. City governor, I know of this, Tianwu has told me before, but, according to my understanding of innate spirit bodies, Tianwu possesses the fire spirit body and there's only 2 ways to avoid the calamity when she's 30. Duan Lingtian said slowly, the first way is to find a possessor of the water spirit body or ice spirit body to become one with Tianwu. The second way is to let Tianwu step into the void transformation stage before the age of 30, then she can use the strength of her void transformation stage cultivation to suppress the energy of the fire spirit body that would erupt when she's 30. Duan Lingtian spoke in an orderly way and caused Feng Wudao to be unable to refrain from frowning. After a short while, Feng Wudao's frown eased up. What you said is logical. But, an innate spirit body is an extremely rare existence. In the history of the Darkened Dynasty, the appearance of the last possessor of an innate spirit body goes back 1,000 years ago. Wanting to find a water spirit body of ice spirit body possessor is by no means easy. Moreover, how do you know you don't possess a water spirit body or ice spirit body? According to my knowledge, many possessors of an innate spirit body only had their spirit body awoken when they were near 30 years of age. As Feng Wudao spoke up to hear, he looked at Duan Lingtian. Perhaps you're a possessor of this type of concealed innate spirit body. Duan Lingtian's face froze, then he laughed bitterly. A possessor of an innate spirit body is extremely rare, how could it be such a coincidence? Coincidence, Feng Wudao said indifferently, then let me ask you. For the sake of Wu's destiny, I came to Phoenix Nest City in advance and prepared for a few years, why would you just happen to appear at this time? Moreover, you're both from the south and came for the soul transformation fruit that my great-grandmother left as Wu's dowry. Don't you think that all this is too much of a coincidence? Feng Wudao asked. Duan Lingtian was silent as he had nothing to say in reply. This was indeed a coincidence, a bizarre coincidence. Duan Lingtian sighed. Alright, just take it as I'm a possessor of a water spirit body or ice spirit body whose spirit body hasn't awoken, but, city governor, you're just so bluntly allowing me to marry Tian Wu, don't you think it's too careless? You don't know anything about my background, family, or character. Aren't you afraid that Tian Wu would suffer hardships from being with me? You dare! Feng Wudao abruptly shouted out explosively, and the shapeless waves of air swept out, causing the tables and chairs in the audience hall to shake as if there was an earthquake. Duan Lingtian secretly broke into cold sweat. A strong strength equals to greatness, and even a casual shout was like an earthquake. Father, don't frighten big brother Duan. Feng Tianwu's beautiful brows slightly knit and she was slightly unhappy. Feng Wudao withdrew the aura on his body and sighed. They all say that daughters follow their husbands, it really is so, you aren't even married yet, but you're already protecting him. Father, what nonsense are you talking? Feng Tianwu's beautiful face flushed as if blood would drip out of it, and at the same time, she snuck a peek at Duan Lingtian and lowered her head in embarrassment when she noticed Duan Lingtian was looking at her. Duan Lingtian was stunned. The relationship between Duan Lingtian and Feng Tianwu could be said to be a relationship from an exchange of blows. But now, he was able to discern that Feng Tianwu seemed to have sincere feelings for him. What was this about? He was unable to wrap his head around it. Could it be that my charm is so great? Duan Lingtian pondered in all seriousness. 430 Chapter 431, Soul Cleanse Pool. It could be imagined that if Feng Wudao knew of Duan Lingtian's current thoughts, he would surely swing out his palm and slap Duan Lingtian flying. However, Feng Tianwu awakening her interest to Duan Lingtian was true. Feng Tianwu was one who was favored by the heavens. As the possessor of a fire spirit body, her natural talent was unquestionable since a young age, and no one amongst her peers could surpass her. This also developed the proudness and aloofness in her heart. However, all this proudness and aloofness completely crumbled after Duan Lingtian appeared and defeated her. Coupled with the fact that she firmly believed Duan Lingtian was the man in her destiny, Duan Lingtian's status in her eyes was greatly diffident. This was also the reason why Duan Lingtian felt that the current Feng Tianwu was completely like a different person compared to before. Feng Tianwu's entire heart was already on him now. If she wasn't affectionate to him, then who would she be affectionate to? The matters of the heart had always been marvelous and difficult to be spoken of clearly. City Governor. Duan Lingtian looked at Feng Wudao and said, "There's one more thing that I think I should tell you and Tianwu, I already have 2 fiancés." What? Feng Wudao's face went grim and said angrily, "Kid, not only do you have a fiancé, but you have 2. Tell me where they are, I'll go deal with them right away. How can the daughter of Feng Wudao, share the same husband with other women?" Feng Wudao's words caused Duan Lingtian's face to sink. City Governor Feng, there's some things that you can't speak carelessly about. HMPH. Feng Wudao snorted angrily and he still wanted to continue, but was interrupted by Feng Tianwu. "Father, if you still continue being like this, then I won't acknowledge you anymore in the future." Feng Tianwu panted with rage and it caused the veil on her face to sway with her breathing. Feng Wudao seemed to become dispirited when he heard Feng Tianwu. Fine, father won't speak of it. He wasn't afraid of anything, but was most afraid of this precious daughter of his. "Kid, my daughter must be the principal wife when she marries you. As for the other 2 girls by your side, I'll take a step back and allow them to be your concubines." Feng Wudao's voice transmission entered into Duan Lingtian's ears. Duan Lingtian frowned and replied via voice transmission. "City Governor Feng, I'm sorry, my women aren't differentiated by principal and concubine. Moreover, I never agreed to marry Tianwu. Kid, what's bad about my daughter?" Feng Wudao's voice transmission contained slight rage mixed within, yet he didn't dare flare up. After all, Feng Tianwu was beside him. Tianwu is very good, but I don't have that type of feeling towards her right now. Besides that, I'll try my best to help her. If I'm really a possessor of the water spirit body or ice spirit body, I can marry Tianwu and become one with her, and even slowly develop feelings with her." Duan Lingtian replied via voice transmission. Feng Tianwu was undoubtedly one of the most outstanding women he'd met in this lifetime. In terms of appearance, she wasn't inferior to Ke and Li Fei. In terms of bearing, perhaps it was because of her extraordinary birth, it even surpassed Ke and Li Fei. Haha, Duan Lingtian's voice transmission had only just entered Feng Wudao's ears when Feng Wudao started laughing, and it caused both Duan Lingtian and Feng Tianwu to be muddled. After a long time, Feng Wudao stopped laughing and looked at Feng Tianwu. Wu, father will listen to you and stop forcing him. Children can take care of themselves and have their own fortune. Father won't concern myself with what extent of a relationship you can achieve with him in the future. But father still wants to remind you that sometimes, you have to rely on yourself to pursue your own happiness. Once you miss it, you might regret it your whole life. I know, father. Feng Tianwu's beautiful face flushed from what Feng Wudao said. Duan Lingtian heaved a sigh of relief. Looks like what I said moved Feng Wudao and made him give up any thoughts of forcing me to marry Tianwu. Duan Lingtian. Feng Wudao looked at Duan Lingtian and said indifferently, since you're not considered to be Wu's fiancé now, then I naturally can't give you her dowry, the soul transformation fruit. When you really do become my son-in-law, then I'll give the soul transformation fruit to you as Wu's dowry. Duan Lingtian nodded. Even though the spirit transformation fruit was valuable and its assistance to him was even extremely great, he wouldn't falsely agree to the marriage agreement with Feng Tianwu just for the sake of the soul transformation fruit. In this way, it would be too unfair to Feng Tianwu. Looks like I've really changed greatly, I wonder if it's good or bad. Duan Lingtian sighed to himself. If it was him during his previous life, he would absolutely have no resistance against a beauty of Feng Tianwu's level. Whereas during this current lifetime, he had an extra sense of responsibility. As far as he was concerned, if he were to blindly agree to a marriage with Feng Tianwu before he had any feelings for her, then not only would it be unfair to Feng Tianwu, it would similarly be unfair to Kai and Li Fei. Although I can't give you the soul transformation fruit, I know of a place that ought to be able to assist you in breaking through the shackles of your spiritual force and allow your spiritual force to step into the void-prying stage. Feng Wudao continued. Duan Lingtian's face went grim. City Governor, the formidable spiritual force from that day belongs to you. Duan Lingtian recalled that when he wanted to use his spiritual force to investigate Feng Tianwu outside the groom search competition's arena that day, there was a formidable spiritual force that suppressed his spiritual force back. Fortunately, that formidable spiritual force bore no ill will and showed mercy, otherwise, his soul would surely be heavily injured. After all, spiritual force stemmed from the soul. Moreover, an injury of the soul and an injury of the body were two entirely different concepts. The latter's healing could be assisted with ordinary injury healing pills. The formed instead required special injury healing pills that were of grade 3 or above in order to be able to assist with the healing of the soul. Now, when he heard Feng Wudao speak of the level of his soul, he thought the owner of that formidable spiritual force was Feng Wudao at the first possible moment. It wasn't mine. Feng Wudao shook his head with a smile. It was Elder Kong. As for the level of your spiritual force, it was Elder Kong who told me. Elder Kong. Duan Lingtian was stunned. Big brother Duan, it's the Grandpa Kong that I told you about. Grandpa Kong is extremely formidable, Feng Tianwu said with a light smile. Duan Lingtian nodded and he didn't doubt what Feng Tianwu said. That day, that formidable spiritual force had suppressed his spiritual force to the point it didn't have any strength to resist. Based on Duan Lingtian's preliminary estimations, the owner of that spiritual force, or in other words Elder Kong, was an existence that had at least stepped into the void initiation stage or even stronger than that. City Governor, you said earlier that there's a place that can assist my spiritual force to break through the last shackles of my soul and break through to the void-prying stage. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian recovered from his shock and recalled what Feng Wudao said earlier, and he had an expression of burning desire. Presently, he was unable to obtain the soul transformation fruit, so he naturally wouldn't miss the opportunity when he heard of another way to allow his spiritual force to break through. Father, are you talking about the soul cleanse pool? Feng Wudao hadn't spoken yet when Feng Tianwu had already asked. Exactly, the day the soul cleanse pool opens is in another 3 months. Feng Wudao nodded. Soul cleanse pool. Duan Lingtian was stunned. I'll let Wu tell you the specifics later. According to Elder Kong, you're an inscription master like him. During the 3 months before the soul cleanse pool opens, go over to Elder Kong's place when you're free and let Elder Kong, who's a great inscription master, guide you in your art of inscriptions. It's sufficient for you to enjoy boundless benefits. After Feng Wudao finished speaking in a single breath, he waved his hand. Both of you can leave. Duan Lingtian and Feng Tianwu left shoulder to shoulder, and on the way, Duan Lingtian asked curiously. Tian Wu, what's that soul cleanse pool? The soul cleanse pool is a marvelous pool at the southern territory of Darkstone Empire. That place is enveloped by an inscription formation made from the combination of some inscriptions, and it opens every 3 years. Every time it opens, the soul cleanse pool would have accumulated a certain amount of spirit energy. Feng Tianwu slowly introduced. The spirit energy of the soul cleanse pool is able to improve the comprehension ability of a martial artist to a certain extent. According to what Grandpa Kong said, it's none other than tempering the soul. Tempering the soul. Duan Lingtian's pupils constricted and he revealed a surprised expression. Yes, tempering the soul. Feng Tianwu nodded and continued. However, the improvement of the soul provided by the soul cleanse pool is extremely limited, even to the extent that if someone who has already gone in were to go in again, the effect would reduce progressively to almost not having any effect at all. This is something similar to consuming spirit fruits. The medicinal strength would greatly reduce when consuming the same spirit fruit. Duan Lingtian thought in his heart, then asked at the same time. Tian Wu, once the so-called spirit energy within the soul cleanse pool is absorbed, it required a certain amount of time to accumulate and recover. Yes. Feng Tianwu nodded. Then, have you gone in before? Duan Lingtian asked. I entered the soul cleanse pool once 3 years ago. Grandpa Kong said my soul strengthened slightly. Grandpa Kong said that the soul cleanse pool is only able to improve the soul of martial artists below the void prying stage, and martial artists above the void prying stage would only be wasting time by going in. Feng Tianwu continued. Duan Lingtian nodded. He possessed a certain level of understanding towards the thing called a soul cleanse pool. According to the memories of Rebirth Martial Emperor, he once encountered a similar place during his second lifetime. But that place wasn't enveloped by a man-made inscription formation and was formed by nature. Later on, he dug all the way to the depths of the pool and actually found a spirit fruit that was able to strengthen the soul. Whereas the spirit energy contained within the water in the pool was actually the energy emitted from the spirit fruit, and it was similar to the wine fragrance of the Monkey King wine. Duan Lingtian's mood surged. Looks like that soul cleanse pool might have some secrets, Duan Lingtian thought to himself. Perhaps, a spirit fruit that can strengthen the soul is also contained in the depth of that soul cleanse pool. Just the spirit energy emitted by it is sufficient to assist others and improve the soul, then once it's consumed, its medicinal effect would surely be even more shocking. Duan Lingtian's mood surged. According to the memories of the Rebirth Martial Emperor, the spirit fruit that the Rebirth Martial Emperor obtained during his second lifetime was far more valuable than the soul transformation fruit. If a spirit fruit like that is really concealed within the soul cleanse pool, then I'll make a killing. When he thought up to here, Duan Lingtian felt a wave of excitement. 431 Chapter 432, Who's Teaching Who? After Feng Tianwu finished introducing the soul cleanse pool, her gaze unnoticeably shot at Duan Lingtian's hand, and her eyes flickered with a complicated sheen. If it was any ordinary person, they might not have noticed her minute movements. However, how strong was Duan Lingtian's spiritual force, he'd noticed at the first possible moment. What, you like it? Duan Lingtian held up the necklace made from rainbow-colored gems and the luminous pearl and passed it over to Feng Tianwu. For you. Feng Tianwu's beautiful face flushed red first, then she seemed to have recalled something and faintly sighed. Big brother Duan, you should keep it to give the two sister-in-laws. Duan Lingtian was able to feel the sense of loss in Feng Tianwu's words. He shook his head as he smiled and forcefully pushed the necklace made from rainbow-colored gems into Feng Tianwu's hand, and when she was touched by him, she shook as if she was touched by lightning. This necklace is for you, I'll keep the luminous pearl for myself, you're not allowed to refuse it. As Duan Lingtian finished speaking, his tone was filled with dominance. Duan Lingtian knew clearly in his heart that regardless of if it was the luminous pearls of the necklace made from rainbow-colored gems, the Chong clan and Qian clan's patriarch had only given such apologies to him because they were afraid of enraging Feng Wudao. After all, in their eyes, he'd already become the son-in-law of Feng Wudao. It could be said that he'd obtained these two things as a benefit from being associated with Feng Wudao, and giving it to Feng Tianwu was logical. Thank you, big brother Duan. Feng Tianwu lowered her head and was slightly embarrassed. The necklace made from rainbow-colored gems were clenched tightly by her, as if she was extremely afraid she would lose it. In next to no time, Feng Tianwu brought Duan Lingtian to a large independent courtyard. Grandpa Kong. Under Feng Tianwu's lead, Duan Lingtian went to see the old man with her. The old man wore gray clothes, and he gave others an unfathomable feeling as he stood there. Duan Lingtian understood that this old man ought to be the great inscription master that Feng Wudao spoke of, and is also the owner of the formidable spiritual force from a few days ago. Elder Kong. Duan Lingtian lightly nodded to the old man. The old man nodded to Duan Lingtian as well, then looked at Feng Tianwu with a pair of muddy eyes that emitted a sense of affection. Young miss, why have you come here to my place? Grandpa Kong, father asked you to properly guide elder brother Duan's skill in inscriptions. I won't disturb the two of you. Feng Tianwu smiled to the old man, then bid her farewells to Duan Lingtian before turning and leaving. For a time, only Duan Lingtian and the old man remained. Duan Lingtian's eyes emitted a trace of gratitude. He was able to discern that Feng Tianwu wanted to help him, but unfortunately, he entirely didn't need anyone to guide him in the art of inscriptions. After all, at the same time that Duan Lingtian had fused with the lifetime worth of memories of the rebirth martial emperor, Duan Lingtian had also mastered everything the rebirth martial emperor had learned in the art of inscriptions during his lifetime. As far as he was concerned, in the entire Cloud continent, there wasn't a single inscription master that possessed the qualifications to guide him in the art of inscriptions. Little fellow, the young miss is extremely good to you, you can't let her down, otherwise, this old man absolutely won't forgive you. The gray-clothed old man's gaze were like torches and his words contained no lack of warning. Duan Lingtian only smiled indifferently towards this. Since the eldest young master and young miss have spoken, then this old man will guide you in the art of inscriptions. How much you can learn will depend on your own ability. Let me ask you, how much do you understand about the art of inscriptions? The gray-clothed old man's words contained the style of an erudite person. How much do I understand about the art of inscriptions? Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled, then slowly spoke, one by one speaking of some of the elementary understandings of the art of inscriptions within the rebirth martial emperor's memories. After half an hour, the old man's expression had transformed from the beginning stunned expression to an expression of disbelief, then finally to an expression of astonishment. In the end, the old man completely lost his composure, and even spoke with a slight lisp. The gaze the old man shot at Duan Lingtian was completely different now. There wasn't any of the belittling gaze from before, and there was only reverence. Because a great deal of the views Duan Lingtian spoke of caused him to be suddenly enlightened, and many things that he was perplexed or bewildered about had now been readily solved. How should the materials be arranged for the various level of wind concept in the windblade inscription? How do I make the aurora inscription completely obstruct the field of vision of the enemy? How do I inscribe it successfully? How? Gradually, the old man who was supposed to be guiding Duan Lingtian was now being guided by Duan Lingtian. The old man knew not of exhaustion as he asked. All right, Elder Kong, we'll have another exchange when we're free. Duan Lingtian answered a huge pile of questions for the old man, and he felt a wave of speechlessness. The old man's strength and spiritual force was strong, and this was something that he admitted, but Feng Wudao actually called the old man a great inscription master with that level of skill in the art of inscription. It was truly difficult for him to accept this. If even that is a great inscription master, then what was he? An inscription ancestor. When Duan Lingtian left, the old man still hadn't recovered from his shock and still muttered to himself, occasionally frowning and occasionally easing up. As if he'd suddenly become enlightened towards something. Oh, big brother Lingtian, that geezer has finally finished asking. On the way back, the little gold mouse's voice transmission sounded out by his ear. Early on when the old man started asking that pile of questions, the little gold mouse had already laid down on Duan Lingtian's shoulder and fallen asleep. I don't care if he's finished or not, I didn't come here to be his teacher. Duan Lingtian rolled his eyes and had an indifferent expression. That city governor Feng said to ask that geezer to guide big brother Lingtian, but in the end, the old man's own ability is inferior to big brother Lingtian. The little gold mouse's voice transmission was filled with complacency. As if the one who guided the old man in the art of inscriptions wasn't Duan Lingtian, but her. Not long after Duan Lingtian returned, Feng Tianwu brought along servants that held steaming hot food into the room. Tianwu, eat with me. Meanwhile, Duan Lingtian invited Feng Tianwu to stay and eat with him. The two of them chatted as they ate. Big brother Duan, were your gains great at Grandpa Kong's place? Grandpa Kong is an extremely formidable great inscription master, and many people want to ask him to provide them with guidance but have no chance. Feng Tianwu said slowly. Gains. Feng Tianwu's words caused the corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth to twitch. What gains could he possibly have? Tian Wu, you should ask Elder Kong about this. Duan Ling Tian shook his head and smiled, then continued to eat and didn't say anything more. Feng Tianwu had a bewildered expression when she heard Duan Ling Tian, as she didn't know what Duan Ling Tian meant by this. Squeak squeak, the little gold mouse cried out lightly when she heard the content of Duan Ling Tian and Feng Tianwu's chat, and a smiling expression appeared in her jade green eyes. At the same time that Duan Ling Tian and Feng Tianwu were eating, Feng Wudao had arrived before a spacious and independent large courtyard. Elder Kong. Eldest young master, please enter. Along with an aged voice sounding out from within the large courtyard, Feng Wudao walked in. In next to no time, Feng Wudao noticed the old man standing there with a dumbstruck expression while muttering some words, seeming to be recalling something. Elder Kong, I came here this time because I want to ask something of you. During this period of time, if Duan Ling Tian, who defeated Wu on the Groom Search Competition's arena, were to ask you for guidance in the art of inscriptions, I hope you can be generous with your instructions. Feng Wudao spoke to the old man with a tone that contained slight respect mixed within. The old man had already been following by his side since he was young, and the relationship between the two was no different than a normal pair of father and son. Eldest young master, don't make fun of this old fellow. The old man returned to his senses, and his aged face was covered in a bitter smile. Feng Wudao was stunned, as it was the first time he'd seen the old man reveal such an expression. Elder Kong, why do you say this? The old man sighed deeply. As the saying goes, people of exceptional ability emerge in every generation, and the new replace the old. Today, this old man has completely understood the meaning of these words. Feng Wudao had a bewildered expression as he didn't know what the old man was talking about. The young miss brought that little fellow over a short while ago, and asked me to guide him in the art of inscriptions. At that time, I asked him to explain his own understanding of the art of inscriptions. As he spoke up to hear, the old man stopped for a moment and his eyes emitted slight astonishment. Who knew that in the end, it became he who was guiding me? I noticed that his understanding of the arts of inscriptions had practically attained the level of perfection. When he spoke up to hear, the old man's voice was slightly trembling. Perfection. Feng Wudao was stunned. Elder Kong, you aren't joking, right? Might it be that he was talking at random? Impossible. The old man shook his head and had a serious expression. Eldest young master, I don't dare compare my research in the art of inscriptions with the foreign lands. However, in the entire Darken dynasty and even the other few great dynasties, there are really few people that are able to compare with me in the art of inscriptions. Not only did that little fellow speak views and understandings that caused me to be shocked, he even answered my various questions on the art of inscriptions. He didn't even have to think before answering me when I asked him a great deal of questions that have perplexed me for many years. Moreover, his answers were just right and extremely perfect. As he spoke up to hear, the old man's origin energy poured into the spatial ring in his hand. Instantly, light shone in all direction. The dazzling white-colored strong light practically covered the entire heavens and earth. Even Feng Wudao couldn't help but narrow his eyes and say in astonishment. What a formidable aurora inscription! Even a 9th-level void initiation stage martial artist would surely be disturbed if caught off guard. Elder Kong, you've succeeded. Feng Wudao knew that the old man was researching the aurora inscription for many years. Yes, I've succeeded. The old man nodded, then laughed bitterly. Even I never imagined that the aurora inscription that had perplexed me for many years was easily inscribed under the guidance of that little fellow. Moreover, the effect has exceeded my expectations. Feng Wudao was stunned, completely stunned. It was Duan Ling Tian who guided the old man and allowed the old man to be able to inscribe the aurora inscription. He didn't dare believe that all this was true. Elder Kong, he's at most around the age of 22, how could this be possible? Feng Wudao was still unable to believe it. If I didn't see it with my own 2 eyes, heard it with my own 2 ears, and tried it with my own 2 hands, I wouldn't believe that all this is true either. As they say, the one that has achieved a higher level is the one in the lead. In the Tao of inscription, I sincerely admire that little fellow. The old man sighed. Disregarding everything else but the art of inscription, he is sufficient to be my teacher. Feng Wudao was moved once again. Elder Kong actually held Duan Ling Tian in such high esteem. 432 Chapter 433, Slow, Too Slow. No one was clearer of Elder Kong's ability. Elder Kong's strength might not be considered to be second to none in Darken Dynasty, but in terms of the art of inscriptions, if Elder Kong admitted to be number 2 in Darken Dynasty, then no one would dare admit to be number 1. Even if it was the few great dynasties that surrounded the Darkin dynasty, inscription masters that were able to compare with Elder Kong could be counted on one's fingers. There was practically no inscription master that surpassed Elder Kong in the art of inscriptions. But now, Elder Kong actually said that a young man around the age of 22 was sufficient to be his teacher. Instantly, Feng Wudao's chest rose and fell like a bellow, and it was difficult to calm down even after a long time. Earlier on during the groom search competition that day, he was already shocked when Elder Kong said Duan Lingtian's spiritual force was already at the breakthrough point between the nascent soul stage and void prying stage. Now, when he found out that Duan Lingtian's attainments in the art of inscriptions, he was shocked to the point he was stunned. Duan Lingtian, he's worthy of being the destined man that great-grandmother divined for Wu, the son-in-law of Feng Wudao, is extraordinary, as expected. Ha 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 ha. After his shock, Feng Wudao was wildly excited in his heart and a brilliant smile appeared on his face. At this moment, he seemed to have completely forgotten that Duan Lingtian still hadn't agreed to be his son-in-law. Deep in the night, the sky was as black as pitch. Duan Lingtian lay on the soft bed and thought of the events that occurred after he arrived at Phoenix Nest City. The talk of Feng Tianwu's destiny caused him to have a strange feeling in his heart. It was as if after he'd arrived at Phoenix Nest City, he'd ascended the groom search competition's arena for the sake of the soul transformation fruit, and even defeated Feng Tianwu. All this seemed as if it was pushed forward by a large shapeless hand, pushing him step by step into the vortex of destiny. This feeling causing him to feel extremely uncomfortable. Destiny. What F King destiny? I, Duan Lingtian, refuse to believe in this heresy. The destiny of Duan Lingtian, is controlled by me, not by the heavens. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian tossed away this absurd thought, and a strand of cold light flashed within the darkness in his eyes. Unknowingly, he thought of Feng Tianwu, the kind-hearted young woman that was warm like fire. Fire spirit body, I hope I really am able to help her. Otherwise, such an extraordinary young woman like her dying halfway through her life is truly a pity. Duan Lingtian sighed in his heart. Gradually, Duan Lingtian fell asleep. His injuries hadn't completely recovered yet, so this sleep went all the way until noon the next day before he woke up. After he awoke, he felt his mind was refreshed. Not long after, just after Duan Lingtian had worn his clothes, Feng Tianwu brought some servants along to place the food on the table. Big brother Duan, you're awake. Duan Lingtian nodded then sat before the table, intending to eat. Squeak squeak, the little gold mouse's speed was the swiftest. She seized 2 pieces of meat slices and started taking big bites, eating with great relish. Big brother Duan, I never imagined that your attainments in the art of inscriptions were so advanced. Even Grandpa Kong was ashamed of his inferiority. To think that father and I even spoke of asking Grandpa Kong to guide you yesterday, yet in the end it became you who was guiding Grandpa Kong. Feng Tianwu's pair of beautiful eyes stared fixedly at Duan Lingtian as if she wanted to know exactly how many secrets were hidden in Duan Lingtian. Now, she was finally able to understand the meaning of what Duan Lingtian said yesterday. For a moment, she was filled with adoration towards Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian smiled lightly but didn't say anything and started to eat by himself. Big brother Duan, why do you have such advanced understanding of the art of inscriptions? Feng Tianwu blinked her beautiful eyes that were like autumn water, her voice was gentle and filled with curiosity. Tianwu, it's your father and Elder Kong that asked you to come ask me, right? Duan Lingtian glanced deeply at Feng Tianwu, and she was unable to stand up to it and nodded with a slightly embarrassed expression. Actually, I'm slightly curious myself as well. If it's inconvenient for Big Brother Duan to speak about, then take it as I never asked. It isn't inconvenient. Duan Lingtian shook his head. My art of inscription was taught to me by my master. Big Brother Duan's master? Feng Tianwu exclaimed in a low voice. I never imagined that there's actually such a formidable great inscription master hidden within the territory ruled by the Darkin dynasty. In the past, I thought that there wouldn't be an inscription master stronger than Grandpa Kong within the Darkin dynasty and the various empires and imperial kingdoms under its rule. Looks like I was looking at the sky from the bottom of a well. No, Duan Lingtian shook his head once again. You aren't wrong. If it's only the surroundings of the Darkin dynasty, then Elder Kong's attainments in the Tao of inscription can indeed be considered as at the top. Feng Tianwu was slightly puzzled. My master isn't someone from the Darkin dynasty. I heard him say that he seems to be from the foreign lands. Duan Lingtian said slowly. Foreign lands. Feng Tianwu's beautiful face was covered in an expression of disbelief. Big brother Duan, your master is actually a great inscription master from the foreign lands. Duan Lingtian lightly smiled as he nodded. Yes. No wonder big brother Duan's attainments in the Tao of inscriptions is so advanced. So it turns out that your master is from the mysterious, foreign lands. Feng Tianwu sighed with emotion. Foreign lands, a mere 2 words, yet it was sufficient to strike terror in one's heart and cause deep admiration. Experts were numerous like the clouds in the foreign lands, and erudite people were innumerable. Amongst them included various great inscription masters, high-grade alchemists, and high-grade weapons craftsmen. Big brother Duan, I'll be going first, recover well. Feng Tianwu bid her farewells to Duan Lingtian before leaving hastily. Duan Lingtian nodded. Duan Lingtian knew clearly in his heart that this girl was surely anxious to return and report to Feng Wudao and Elder Kong about the matter regarding his master. City Governor's estate, the independent large courtyard that the city governor resided in. What? The red-clothed middle-aged man and the gray-clothed old man instantly left their seats and stared blankly at the young woman in fiery red clothes before them. Wu, is what you said true? The red-clothed middle-aged man was exactly the Phoenix Nest City's governor, Feng Wudao, and he revealed a shocked expression as if his daughter had just spoken of an extraordinary thing. Young miss, he really said that his master is from the foreign lands. The gray-clothed old man was visibly moved as he asked. Father, Grandpa Kong, Big Brother Duan told me all of this himself. If you don't believe it, then feel free to ask for yourselves. The red-clothed young girl, Feng Tianwu, said slightly helplessly. No wonder a little over a 20-year-old young man like him is able to possess such advanced attainments in the Tao of inscriptions. So it turned out that he has a great teacher behind him. The old man came to a sudden understanding, and the bewilderment in his heart was completely solved. Now, I believe even more that he's the man in Wu's destiny. I, Feng Wudao, want this son-in-law for sure. Feng Wudao's eyes squinted and he started laughing. This caused Feng Tianwu to flush in embarrassment. Father, what nonsense are you talking? What, Wu, could it be that you don't like him? I heard that you personally instructed the kitchen to make good food to send to him for these past 2 days. Feng Wudao looked at Feng Tianwu, and his eyes contained a slightly dubious meaning. Father, Feng Tianwu lightly stomped her beautiful legs, and she was angry to the point she turned away and walked off without even looking back. For a time, Feng Wudao and the old man by his side couldn't refrain from laughing. Soul Clean's pool. 3 months from now, within the spacious room, Duan Lingtian sat cross-legged on the floor, and he closed his eyes to start cultivating after consuming a nascent nurturing pill. 9 Dragons War Sovereign Technique, Windworm Form. Presently, Duan Lingtian's cultivation had already stepped into the 5th level of the nascent soul stage, and what he had to do now was charge towards a higher level to possess a stronger strength. The 2-year agreement of his with Zither Young Master was in another 9 months. At that time, he would rush back to the 7-star sword sect and battle the Zither Young Master. Zither Young Master, Zi Shang, was already a martial artist at the 7th level of the nascent soul stage over 1 year ago. As one of the 5 great young masters that were the most outstanding within the younger generation of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, his current cultivation might already have stepped into the 8th level of the nascent soul stage. When the 2-year period was over, the Zither Young Master might have already become a 9th level nascent soul stage martial artist. 9th level nascent soul stage. Duan Lingtian felt quite a strong pressure. Cultivate madly. For almost 3 months of time, besides cultivating, Duan Lingtian would occasionally bring along the little gold mouse and leave the city governor's estate with Feng Tianwu, and they would stroll around all over Phoenix Nest City to relax. Besides that, during this period of time, he was disturbed by Elder Kong on many occasions, and every time Elder Kong looked for him, it would be to ask him questions related to inscriptions. Whereas Duan Lingtian would answer and explain them one by one to Elder Kong. To him who'd fused with the memories of the rebirth martial emperor, Elder Kong's questions were only basic questions. The admiration Elder Kong felt towards Duan Lingtian had practically reached the limit. Duan Lingtian awoke from his cultivation, and he shook his head as he sighed. I'm still quite far away. Although his cultivation was close to the 6th level of nascent soul stage, it would at least take another 1 to 2 months for him to break through. Slow, too slow. Duan Lingtian frowned and his expression was gloomy. The 2-year agreement between me and Zither Young Master is in another half a year. At that time, with the zither young master's natural talent, his cultivation would at least be at the 9th level of the nascent soul stage. At this moment, Duan Lingtian couldn't help but be slightly impatient in his heart. After all, the battle between him and zither young master half a year from now was related to his honor as a man, and he had to be cautious. Unless I'm able to break through to the 7th level of the nascent soul stage in half a year, otherwise, it will be difficult for me to have a chance at winning. Duan Lingtian took a deep breath and was filled with yearning for the 7th level of the nascent soul stage. Once he broke through to the 7th level of the nascent soul stage, then not only would his strength improve greatly, he would also be able to smoothly condense a grade 5 weapon flame at the same time, and become a grade 5 weapons craftsman. At that time, he would be able to refine a grade 5 spirit weapon. Although the zither young master, Zi Shang, similarly possessed a grade 5 spirit weapon, in terms of quality, it would be far inferior to the grade 5 spirit weapon Duan Lingtian refined himself. Coupled with his elementary wind force and quake energy. So long as zither young master hasn't comprehended a force seed, or his comprehension of a force seed doesn't surpass saber young master, then it would be nothing for me to defeat him as long as I break through to the 7th level of the nascent soul stage. A bright light shot out from Duan Lingtian's eyes. But, Duan Lingtian knew clearly that even if he was able to break through to the 6th level of the nascent soul stage within 2 months, it was very unlikely for him to break through to the 7th level of the nascent soul stage before the date of the 2-year agreement arrived. After all, the 6th level of the nascent soul stage to the 7th level of the nascent soul stage was a divide that was extremely difficult to leap over. 433 Chapter 434, The Deterrent Force of the Strong. On the back of an enormous flying beast that fly forward swiftly, Feng Wudao looked at Duan Lingtian with a serious expression as he said, that Soul Clean's pool seemed to have been left behind by a formidable inscription master. That inscription master established a complicated inscription formation that opens every 3 years there, and only during that day are people able to enter and leave from there. So once you enter, you're at most able to stay a day before you have to come out. Otherwise, you might not be able to come out again. Duan Lingtian nodded. Inscription formation. He's heard Feng Wudao mention this before. Inscription formations weren't unfamiliar to him. After all, he was an existence that had fused with the lifetime worth of memories of the rebirth martial emperor, and had inherited the rebirth martial emperor's attainments in the Tao of inscriptions. An inscription formation was a formation formed from various different types of inscriptions, and it could only be placed when one's spiritual force had attained the void interpretation stage. Because, only a formidable spiritual force was able to control many inscriptions and combine them together to form a boundlessly marvelous formation. The Tao of inscriptions is boundlessly profound, especially the inscription formation is even more difficult to fathom. This was something that Duan Lingtian knew deeply. Big brother Duan, if you've entered the Soul Clean's pool, then you must do your best to absorb the spirit energy within to temper your soul. Only in this way would you be able to temper your soul to the greatest extent within a day and come out before the inscription formation closes. Feng Tianwu stood at the side and reminded Duan Lingtian. With brother Duan's attainments in the Tao of inscription, he might be able to break through the inscription formation on that Soul Clean's pool. The gray-clothed old man looked at Duan Lingtian with a gaze filled with sincere admiration. If he's really able to break through that inscription formation, then it would mean that he would be able to absorb more of the spirit energy within the Soul Clean's pool and temper his soul a step further. This is a good thing. Feng Wudao's gaze lit up, and looked at Duan Lingtian with slight anticipation. Duan Lingtian was silent as he never expected that Feng Wudao and Elder Kong looked so highly upon him. At this moment, Duan Lingtian's group were heading towards the Soul Clean's pool. The Soul Clean's pool opened every 3 years, and many people would enter every time it opened, because the spirit energy contained within the Soul Clean's pool was limited, so that amount of people that entered the Soul Clean's pool was always fixed at 30 people. Whereas these 30 spots were all controlled in the hands of the 30 cities in the surroundings of the Soul Clean's pool. The Phoenix Nest City possessed a spot. 3 years ago, the Phoenix Nest City's spot belonged to Feng Tianwu, and this time, it belonged to Duan Lingtian instead. 2 days later, the flying beast beneath Duan Lingtian's group slowed down its speed. This flying beast was a void-prying stage demon beast, and it broke through the clouds and mist as it plunged down. Duan Lingtian's gaze never stopped looking forward from the beginning until the end. Along with the demon beast descending, a vast gorge appeared before his eyes. Within the gorge, a ball of thick mist and clouds were condensed together, and they emitted all kinds of mysteriousness that caused it to be difficult for one to see through what exactly was within. When the demon beast descended at the side of the white mist in the gorge, Duan Lingtian noticed that there were already many people standing outside the white mist. Amongst these people were young men and women, middle-aged men and women, and old men and women. Duan Lingtian's group had only just descended from the back of the demon beast when an azure-clothed middle-aged man moved over to greet them, and he looked at Feng Wudao as he greeted warmly. "City Governor Feng, long time no see." Feng Wudao only smiled indifferently. Duan Lingtian originally thought that the middle-aged man would become furious because of this, but unexpectedly, he seemed to no mind in the slightest, and only nodded before bringing along the young man by his side to stand nearby. From the beginning until the end, the young man's gaze never left Feng Tianwu, who wore a veil. Although Feng Tianwu was wearing a veil, her extraordinary and refined disposition was difficult to conceal. No matter where she went, she would be the absolute point of focus. City Governor Feng. In next to no time, many people came, and the people in the lead of each group would warmly greet Feng Wudao. Whereas Feng Wudao didn't even bother to look these people in the eye. Even then, not one of these people dared get angry from embarrassment. This caused Duan Lingtian to be unable to help from feeling amazed. Tian Wu, these people are all the city governors of the other 29 cities. Duan Lingtian asked Feng Tianwu via voice transmission. Yes. Feng Tianwu replied via voice transmission. Big brother Duan, you're surprised of their attitude when facing my father, right? Feng Tianwu continued saying via voice transmission when she saw Duan Lingtian nod. They only found out that the Phoenix Nest City had changed city governors 3 years ago when my father brought me here. Then, they more or less looked down on my father and even wanted to deprive the Phoenix Nest City of its slot. After speaking up to here, Feng Tianwu stopped for a moment before continuing. Later on, my father only slightly revealed his imposing manner and it made those city governors submit completely and didn't dare look down on my father again. Duan Lingtian was able to notice that when Feng Tianwu mentioned this matter, her beautiful face was slightly red as she was obviously slightly happy. Duan Lingtian's pupils constricted. After all, with his current spiritual force, he was more or less already able to sense the aura of a void initiation stage martial artist. All those people who'd taken the initiative to greet Feng Wudao earlier were practically all existences at the void initiation stage. And a few amongst them had even more extraordinary strength. But even then, Feng Wudao didn't even bother to look them in the eye, yet they were still polite before Feng Wudao. Duan Lingtian knew clearly in his heart that this was the reverence towards the strong. I wonder when I'll be able to possess a strength like City Governor Feng, and possess a deterrent force like him. Duan Lingtian sighed to himself. Haha, City Governor Feng, we haven't seen each other for 3 years, yet your demeanor remains the same as before. Suddenly, a sonorous voice entered into Duan Lingtian's ears. Subsequently, he saw a blue-clothed middle-aged man descend from the back of an enormous flying beast, and behind the middle-aged man, a young man around the age of 26 or 27 followed. The young man's appearance was cold, yet when his gaze descended onto Feng Tianwu, it instead emitted traces of burning desire. Looks like even if Tianwu wears a veil, she's still extremely well received. Duan Lingtian said to himself. Think about it, although Feng Tianwu wore a veil when outside, her disposition was natural and was sufficient to attract many lascivious men. Coupled with the existence of an expert like Feng Wudao behind Feng Tianwu. In this way, there were surely a great number of people that wanted to bow beneath her skirt. The blue-clothed middle-aged man didn't mind when Feng Wudao only glanced indifferently at him, and his gaze descended onto Duan Lingtian as he asked. City Governor Feng, I heard you obtained a son-in-law 3 months ago, could it be this person? What, City Governor Zhang, you have some advice for me? Feng Wudao asked indifferently. I don't dare give you advice, I'm just surprised at the age of City Governor's son-in-law. It's truly difficult to imagine that there's still such a young genius that's able to defeat your daughter, Miss Tianwu. As he finished speaking, the blue-clothed middle-aged man's gaze spun around Duan Lingtian before descending onto Feng Tianwu. Tianwu, when I found out that City Governor Feng held a groom search competition for you, I wished for nothing more than to grow a pair of wings and fly to Phoenix Nest City, but unfortunately, I still couldn't make it in time. However, I never imagined that someone actually defeated you and beat me to the punch. The young man behind the blue-clothed middle-aged man moved his gaze from Feng Tianwu to Duan Lingtian, and there was no lack of intention to provoke within it. Duan Lingtian had a carefree expression and remained unmoved. However, Duan Lingtian didn't feel the young man's current actions were worthy of notice, but it didn't mean that Feng Tianwu didn't as well. Before outsiders, Feng Tianwu wasn't so gentle like she ordinarily was when she was before Duan Lingtian. She looked to the young man and said coldly and indifferently, "You can call my full name, Feng Tianwu. Tianwu isn't something you can speak of. Besides that, not to mention you don't satisfy the requirements for my groom search competition that day. Even if you did, do you honestly think you can defeat me?" Feng Tianwu's sudden outburst caused Duan Lingtian to be stunned. How similar was the scene before him and the scene when he met Feng Tianwu for the first time that day. Feng Tianwu at that time spoke with a tone filled with aggression and even directly attacked him. Later on, after he defeated Feng Tianwu, only then did her attitude towards him change. Especially after Feng Tianwu firmly believed that he was the man in her destiny, she was even extremely gentle to him, and compared to how she was currently, it was simply like two different people. The young man was angered to the point his face flushed red when he heard Feng Tianwu, yet he was afraid of Feng Wudao and didn't dare say anything. This scene caused Duan Lingtian to be unable to refrain from laughing silently. But his laughter entered into the eyes of the young man, and for a time, he seemed to have become the venting point for the young man's rage. "Kid, what are you laughing at?" The young man looked at Duan Lingtian and spoke in a low voice. "What has what I'm laughing at got to do with you?" Duan Lingtian glanced indifferently at the young man. The young man was stirred by what Feng Tianwu said earlier yet was unable to speak a word after a long time. Now he'd instead showed off his strength before Duan Lingtian. Did he really think that Duan Lingtian was a soft persimmon? "Kid, since you defeated the city governor's daughter, I presume your strength is extremely formidable, then I'll challenge you to a battle. Do you dare?" The young man roared, and the origin energy on his body raged and surged. Above him, 800 lifelike ancient mammoth silhouettes condensed into form. Duan Lingtian frowned and his face sank slightly. This person still wanted to fight him. HMPH. If you want to fight Big Brother Duan, then first pass through me. In the next moment, Duan Lingtian heard a tender shout and a wave of fragrant wind assault his nose, then a figure that was like flames descended before him, protecting him behind herself. It was precisely Feng Tianwu. Squeak squeak. Meanwhile, the little gold mouse that lay asleep on Duan Lingtian's shoulder was woken up by the racket, and she rubbed her eyes like a human before looking at the scene before her, then a strand of cold light flashed within her jade green eyes. "Big Brother Duan, do you want me to kill him?" The little gold mouse's voice transmission entered into Duan Lingtian's ears and it was filled with ruthlessness. Duan Lingtian was stunned. This little fellow just woke up and is already so ruthless. "There's no need, I can deal with it," Duan Lingtian replied via voice transmission. 434 Chapter 435, half an hour. "Bye, don't be rude." The blue-clothed middle-aged man that stood beside the young man, the person that was called City Governor Zhang by Feng Wudao, frowned as he shouted in a low voice. But the young man didn't pay any attention to him and instead looked at Duan Lingtian as he ridiculed. "Kid, if you have the balls then don't hide behind a woman. In my opinion, you surely used despicable and shameless methods to defeat Tianwu." "City Governor Feng, I'm sorry. My son." City Governor Zhang looked at Feng Wudao and had an apologetic expression. "There's no harm done." Feng Wudao waved his hand and said indifferently, "Let the juniors solve their own problems. If one wants to become a great person, then one can't avoid experiencing some suffering on the path of growth." City Governor Zhang was stunned and a bad premonition arose within his heart. He looked at his son, wanting to stop him. But unfortunately, he was still too late. The conflict had already arisen and it was difficult to retrieve spilt water. "Tianwu." Duan Lingtian stopped Feng Tianwu who wanted to come forward on his behalf, and lightly smiled. "Let me handle these small matters, it's only a clown, you don't have to get angry because of him." Feng Tianwu lightly nodded, and when she looked back at Duan Lingtian, she smiled like a flower. "Big Brother Duan, then I'll watch you teach this clown a proper lesson." "All right." Duan Lingtian nodded. As for the young man, the son of City Governor Zhang Bai, his face had gone gloomy since long ago. "Clown." This little kid that was slightly over 20 called him a clown. "Bai." City Governor Zhang had just spoke when it abruptly stopped. He was able to discern that his son was truly angry, and with his understanding of his son, then once his son set his mind on something, it would be impossible to change. Although he was able to use his strong martial strength to stop the following scene from occurring, When he recalled what Feng Wudao said earlier, he dispelled any thoughts of making a move. Meanwhile, everyone within the gorge had surrounded them. It's City Governor Zhong's son, Zhang Bai. Supposedly, Zhang Bai's cultivation has already broken through to the 6th level of the nascent soul stage. That young man came together with City Governor Feng. I seem to have not seen him in the past. You don't know. 3 months ago, this young man defeated Miss Tianwu during the groom search competition City Governor Feng held for Miss Tianwu, and became the son-in-law of City Governor Feng. I heard this son-in-law of City Governor Feng is only a 5th-level nascent soul stage martial artist. It can't be, right? According to my knowledge, Miss Tianwu seems to be a martial artist at the 6th level of the nascent soul stage that had comprehended a fire force seed. Moreover, she even possesses a grade 5 spirit weapon. How could she possibly lose at the hands of a 5th-level nascent soul stage martial artist? Allegedly, this young man used elementary wind force to defeat Miss Tianwu. Elementary wind force? What a joke. That's genuine force that only a martial artist at the void-prying stage or above is able to comprehend. How could a 5th-level nascent soul stage martial artist like him comprehend it? The surrounding crowd quickly became bustling with excitement and the rumors relating to Duan Lingtian started spreading out. But no one believed the rumor that Duan Lingtian had comprehended elementary wind force. After all, only martial artists at the void-prying stage and above are able to comprehend genuine force, and this was an iron law in Cloud Continent. They'd never heard of anyone being able to break this iron law. People which possessed similar thoughts naturally included Zhang Bai. Kid, let me properly experience your elementary wind force. Zhang Bai ridiculed, and a spirit sword appeared with a raise of his hand, then origin energy coiled and raged as it suffused the space around the spirit sword. Whoosh! In an instant, another 300 ancient mammoth silhouettes appeared beside the existing 800 ancient mammoth silhouettes above Zhang Bai. Based on the strength of amplification, the spirit sword in Zhang Bai's hand was obviously a grade 6 spirit sword. The Darkstone Empire is worthy of being an existence that transcended the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. This son of a city governor from a mere remote city is actually able to casually take out a grade 6 spirit sword, truly shocking. Duan Lingtian thought in his heart. After all, even if it was in a sect like the 7-star sword sect, grade 6 spirit swords were only controlled in the hands of the higher-ups. Besides him, practically no one amongst the younger generation disciples of the 7-star sword sect possessed a grade 6 spirit sword. Of course, Duan Lingtian knew clearly in his heart that this wasn't sufficient to show that the 7-star sword sect was inferior to a mere city governor's estate in a remote city of the Darkstone Empire, and it was instead because the level of weapons refinement in the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom was inferior to the Darkstone Empire. The level of weapons refinement was decided by the amount of high-grade weapons craftsmen. The amount of high-grade weapons craftsmen in the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom was surely inferior to the Darkstone Empire. The word empire had already firmly surpassed the word imperial kingdom. The strength of 1,100 ancient mammoths. The corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth curled into a smile of disdain and indifference, as Zhang Bai posed no threat to him in the slightest. HMPH. Perhaps he'd discerned the disdain on the corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth. Zhang Bai's face sank and grunted coldly before flashing out. Swoosh! Zhang Bai moved out to attack, seeming to transform into a gust of wind, and everywhere he passed, dust and dirt flew in the air as he swept towards Duan Lingtian. Kid, let me properly experience the genuine wind force you've comprehended. At the same time, a voice that was filled with mocking and ridicule sounded out. As you wish, Duan Lingtian replied in an uninterested manner, and the origin energy beneath his legs rages as wind force emerged. Instantly, 900 ancient mammoth silhouettes appeared in the sky above Duan Lingtian. Whereas Duan Lingtian seemed to have transformed into a gale as well, moving aside a step earlier before Zhang Bai reached him, avoiding the grade 6 spirit sword that was powered by Zhang Bai's strength of 1,100 ancient mammoths. Zhang Bai's grade 6 spirit sword's speed was swift because of the amplification of the sword itself, but it didn't mean that his own speed was swift. His own speed was only powered by the strength of 800 ancient mammoths. He couldn't catch up to Duan Lingtian's speed no matter how hard he tried. So long as Duan Lingtian didn't give him an opportunity to get close, it would be difficult for him to catch up to Duan Lingtian. Wind force. It's really elementary wind force. The surrounding crowd had no lack of people with sharp eyesight, and they saw through the aura of wind force that was suffused within the origin energy on Duan Lingtian's legs with a glance. That was genuine force, wind force, elementary wind force. It was comparably to the strength of 200 ancient mammoths. The expressions of most people changed to an expression of shock. This son-in-law of city governor Feng has actually broken the iron law of cloud continents since ancient times. Swoosh, 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 Duan Lingtian was like a ghost as he ceaselessly flashed around Zhang Bai, constantly keeping a length of distance from Zhang Bai, and causing the grade 6 spirit sword in Zhang Bai's hand to be unable to touch him. At this moment, Zhang Bai was incomparably aggrieved. The grade 6 spirit sword in his hand possessed a strong strength and swift speed, yet the speed under his feet was far inferior to Duan Lingtian. Currently, it was as if Duan Lingtian was playing tricks on him. Let me see how you dodge this. Suddenly, Zhang Bai, who was angry out of embarrassment, shouted out explosively. He'd accurately grasped the trajectory of Duan Lingtian's movements, and the grade 6 spirit sword in his hand shook as it flew out from his hand, flying directly towards Duan Lingtian. Swish! The grade 6 spirit sword seemed to have transformed into a sharp arrow that tightly locked itself onto Duan Lingtian, and gave rise to a wave of ear-piercing howls in the wind as it moved. This sword strike was powered by the strength of 1,100 ancient mammoths, and its speed was swift to the extent it far surpassed Duan Lingtian's speed. Quite intelligent in a small way. Duan Lingtian stopped moving when facing this sword strike as he knew that continuing to dodge had no meaning now. With his current speed, it would be inferior to Zhang Bai's sword even if he utilized quake energy at the limit. After Duan Lingtian stopped, a dark violet flexible sword appeared out of thin air in his hand. Suddenly Duan Lingtian attacked. Sword drawing arts. His sword swung out like a bolt of lightning, especially since that besides the raging origin energy within it, there was swift and fierce elementary wind force mixed within. Swoosh! In the sky, 1,200 ancient mammoth silhouettes dashed out with an imposing manner that shot into the sky like a rainbow. Swoosh! The sword in Duan Lingtian's hand was like a shadow that easily stopped the sword that Zhang Bai sent out. Clang! With a single sword strike, he'd smashed Zhang Bai's grade 6 spirit sword flying in an extremely efficient manner. Whirlwind! Duan Lingtian seized this opportunity to transform into a gale once again and charged straight towards Zhang Bai, whose face went pale. Show mercy! The face of Zhang Bai's father went pale, yet he didn't dare move to assist Zhang Bai. Because he'd noticed that Feng Wudao had already locked onto him, and caused him to not dare make any rash movements. The violet myrtle flexible sword in Duan Lingtian's hand flashed out, and when it arrived close to Zhang Bai, it suddenly twisted to slap out with the blade of the sword. Slap! The blade of the sword smashed onto Zhang Bai's body, slapping Zhang Bai flying to fiercely collide on the precipice at the side of the gorge, and for a time, shattered bits of rocks flew about and dust suffused the air. Whereas Zhang Bai brushed on the wall as he fiercely descended onto the ground, then repeatedly spat out a few mouthfuls of blood with an extremely ghastly pale expression. When he looked at Duan Lingtian once again, his gaze was filled with terror. Duan Lingtian put away his sword, then glanced indifferently at Zhang Bai before returning to Feng Tianwu's side. No one noticed that at this moment, Feng Tianwu's beautiful face beneath the veil had flushed rosy, as if she was even happier than if it was she herself who'd taught Zhang Bai his lesson. Congratulations City Governor Feng for obtaining such a superb son-in-law. Congratulations City Governor Feng. City Governor Feng has such great fortune to actually obtain such a son-in-law. Presently, the people from the other 28 cities were practically all gathered here, and the 28 city governors had all congratulated Feng Wudao. Whereas Feng Wudao revealed a rare smile. Thank you, little brother, for showing mercy. After City Governor Zhang gave Zhang Bai a medicinal pill, he looked at Duan Lingtian with an expression of gratitude. He knew clearly in his heart that even if Duan Lingtian really killed his son earlier, he wouldn't dare take revenge and could only endure it. Feng Wudao was too strong. Even if he and the other 28 city governors were to join forces, they might not be able to be a match for Feng Wudao. Duan Lingtian nodded lightly. There's still another half an hour before the Soulclean's pool opens. It was unknown who said this. The gazes of most of the people within the gorge descended onto the ball of cloud and mist within the gorge. The cloud and wind were converged together and revealed a mysterious and unfathomable aura. The Soulclean's pool is inside. Duan Lingtian's spiritual force extended out and sensed the numerous energies of inscriptions contained within the clouds and mist in the first possible moment. 435 Chapter 436, The Source of the Spirit Energy. 9 inscriptions. Duan Lingtian was slightly surprised. Relying on his acute spiritual force, he was able to notice that there was actually an inscription formation within the clouds and mist before him, and it was an incomparably profound formation formed by a total of 9 inscriptions that complemented each other. The defensive strength of this inscription formation is sufficient to withstand the attack of a martial artist below the void transformation stage. 9 inscriptions joined together to form a cycle that's able to absorb the energy of heaven and earth. So long as it wasn't destroyed by an expert at the void transformation stage in one go, then regardless of how great an extent of harm it receives, it would be able to automatically repair itself in a short amount of time. According to the memories of rebirth Martial Emperor, Duan Lingtian was able to perceive that the inscription master that left this inscription formation behind was extremely outstanding. Combining 9 inscriptions to form a formidable inscription formation, this inscription master's spiritual forces level was at least at the void transformation stage or above. Duan Lingtian thought in his heart. Big brother Duan, have you noticed anything? Feng Tianwu, who'd always had her eye on Duan Lingtian, noticed the changes in Duan Lingtian's expression and she asked via voice transmission. Duan Lingtian lightly nodded and told her of what he'd noticed. An inscription master whose spiritual force had attained the void transformation stage. Then wouldn't the person who left this inscription formation be a void transformation stage expert? Feng Tianwu's beautiful face beneath the veil had a slightly shocked expression. The probability is over 90%. Duan Lingtian replied via voice transmission. After all, not everyone was like him and could possess a spiritual force that exceeded his cultivation by a great deal. The reason his spiritual force was strong was because his soul was from Earth in his previous life, then it even collided with the formidable soul of the rebirth Martial Emperor himself, and an unusual change had occurred in his soul because of this. An ordinary inscription master possessed a spiritual force that was equal to cultivation. Of course, there were also some comparatively outstanding inscription masters that possessed a spiritual force that was a level of 2 above their cultivation. But their spiritual force wouldn't be so exaggerated like Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian and Feng Tianwu stood together as they looked at each other and sent voice transmissions back and forth. This scene seemed to be peaceful, but when it entered the eyes of an observant person, it completely became something else. Miss Tianwu and this little brother are truly a perfect match, a pair made in heaven. A city governor couldn't refrain from sighing. Duan Lingtian was stunned. As for Feng Tianwu, the beautiful face beneath her veil flushed completely red. Meanwhile, Duan Lingtian was able to sense numerous gazes of jealousy and envy flashing over from all over to descend onto him. He paid no attention to this and never even thought of providing an explanation. Although there was nothing between him and Feng Tianwu, if he were to explain at this moment, then even if the others believe him, it would cause Feng Wudao and Feng Tianwu to lose face. Feng Tianwu was a friend to him, and Feng Wudao was the father of Feng Tianfu, so he was a senior to him. He naturally wouldn't cause Feng Tianwu and Feng Wudao to be in a difficult position. If Wu is really able to get together with him, then it's Wu's fortune as well. Feng Wudao looked at Duan Lingtian with an extremely complicated gaze. Now, the more he understood Duan Lingtian, the more he wanted Duan Lingtian to become his son-in-law. Half an hour quickly passed by. The soul cleanse pool is about to open. It was unknown who cried out. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian saw that the ball of cloud and mist in the gorge split open from the center, as if it was chopped open by an enormous axe. The cloud and mist split apart. What appeared before them was dusky-colored clouds and mist, and the scene within couldn't be seen clearly. But Duan Lingtian's spiritual force instead had easily entered into it and touched the soul cleanse pool, and as he felt the so-called spirit energy suffused within the soul cleanse pool, his spiritual force felt a wave of comfort. Even though the inscription formation that enveloped the soul cleanse pool was opened, not a single person entered. The gazes of the 29 city governors had all descended onto Feng Wudao. Go in. Only when Feng Wudao looked at Duan Lingtian did he come back to his senses, so it turned out that the governors of the various cities were waiting for him to enter. Of course, he knew clearly in his heart that the reason he enjoyed such treatment was because of Feng Wudao. Otherwise, the various city governors wouldn't even look at his straight in the eye. Duan Lingtian nodded, then looked at the little gold mouse on his shoulder. Little gold, go to Tianwu first, I'll be back very soon. Squeak squeak, although she was slightly unwilling, the little gold mouse still obediently jumped onto Tianwu's hand. Don't worry big brother Duan, I'll take good care of little gold. Tianwu looked at Duan Lingtian as she assured him. Duan Lingtian lightly smiled as she nodded, then his body flashed out, transforming into a gust of wind that was the first to pass through the split-open inscription formation and enter within. After passing through the dusky mist, Duan Lingtian felt the scene before his eyes suddenly brighten up. A spacious lake entered his eyes, and there seemed to be strands of a green glow leaping about on the surface of the lake. Soulclean's pool, Duan Lingtian thought in his heart. When he noticed the wave of movement coming from behind him, Duan Lingtian knew that the other 29 young geniuses from the various cities were about to enter, and he didn't hesitate to fly out and leap into the Soulclean's pool with a plop, then dove under. Right at this moment, Duan Lingtian was able to notice that his spiritual force that hadn't had any movement for a long time had suddenly started to become slightly restless. Looks like the spirit energy within this Soulclean's pool is indeed likely to assist my spiritual force to break through. Duan Lingtian was slightly excited in his heart. Once his spiritual force broke through, the scope of inscriptions that he could inscribe would become even stronger, and he would be able to easily inscribe some high-grade inscriptions that he was unable to inscribe in the past. When he thought of the scene of him utilizing an inscription and causing a void-crying stage martial artist to turn into ash, Duan Lingtian was slightly excited in his heart. I actually don't have to intentionally absorb the spirit energy of this Soulclean's pool. It completely fuses into my soul on its own and strengthens my spiritual force. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian had noticed this, and this caused him to be inexplicably pleasantly surprised. Since it's like this, then I'll properly find out what exactly this Soulclean's pool is. Duan Lingtian's gaze abruptly lit up as he continued to dove downwards into the Soulclean's pool. He'd never forgotten his original intentions all along. According to the past experience of the rebirth Martial Emperor, there was surely a secret to why the Soulclean's pool would give birth to the spirit energy. Now, Duan Lingtian intended to find this secret. After all, the rebirth Martial Emperor had encountered an existence similar to the Soulclean's pool once, and in the end, at the depths of that pool, the rebirth Martial Emperor had found a spirit fruit with effects that far surpassed a soul transformation fruit. That spirit fruit also allowed the level of the rebirth Martial Emperor's soul to surpass his cultivation by an entire 3 levels in one go. Although it wasn't as abnormal as Duan Lingtian's soul currently, it was still considered to be shocking. With Duan Lingtian's current strength, holding his breath and diving was of no difficulty to him. After a short moment, he'd smoothly dived into the depths of the Soulclean's pool. Right at this moment, a wave of sounds of things dropping into water sounded out in the Soulclean's pool. It was the other young geniuses from the other 29 cities that had all dived into the Soulclean's pool. Most of these young geniuses stayed at the spot they entered as they enjoyed the tempering and baptism of the soul. There were also a small portion of them that curiously dove deeper and started sizing up the surroundings, but what entered their eyes was a boundless expanse, causing them to return after diving in for a short amount of time. The unknown was the most terrifying. They weren't sure what was within the depths of the Soulclean's pool, so they didn't dare take the risk. They were different than Duan Lingtian, after all. Fortunately, I can utilize my spiritual force, otherwise, I'd be entirely unable to find the way within this Soulclean's pool. Duan Lingtian, who'd continuously dove downwards, couldn't help but muse to himself. His spiritual force constantly maintained searched the scene ahead. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian noticed that he'd arrived at the bottom of the Soulclean's pool. There's actually nothing. At the bottom of the Soulclean's pool, an open expanse appeared before him, but there was only dense aquatic plants lurking all around. However, the density of the spirit energy here seems to be higher than outside. Duan Lingtian thought in his heart, and his spiritual force extended out once again. Ordinarily speaking, if the spirit energy within this Soulclean's pool is really from some type of spirit fruit, then the spirit energy at the location of that spirit fruit ought to be even denser than here. Now, Duan Lingtian was searching for the place in the depths of the Soulclean's pool that possessed an even denser spirit energy. A quarter of an hour passed. Half an hour passed. 1 hour passed. Duan Lingtian was extremely patient, walking slowly at the bottom of the Soulclean's pool, and he searched the level of density of the spirit energy in the surroundings as he walked. Needless to say, this Soulclean's pool was really extremely large. Duan Lingtian moved about as he searched, and he spent 2 hours before walking through half the Soulclean's pool. The density of the spirit energy here seems so be weaker than the beginning. Duan Lingtian was shocked first, then came to an understanding. Right, beside me, there's another 29 people absorbing the spirit energy within the Soulclean's pool to temper the soul, and consumption is extremely normal, but where exactly is the source of the spirit energy within the Soulclean's pool? Duan Lingtian continued to walk towards the other side of the Soul Cleanse pool's bottom, and his spiritual force extended out to carefully search, not missing any trace in the slightest. Time quietly passed by. Another half an hour passed. I've found it. Suddenly, Duan Lingtian's body shook and excitement appeared on his face as the spiritual force he extended out had finally noticed the source of the spirit energy within the Soul Cleanse pool. At a side of the bottom of the Soul Cleanse pool, behind a large patch of dense aquatic plants. Luckily, Duan Lingtian felt slightly lucky. After all, he'd searched all the way here, and no matter if it was his body or spiritual force, they were more or less slightly exhausted. When he first saw this patch of aquatic plants, he instinctively wanted to make his spiritual force briefly scan past it. In the end, he still patiently stretched out his spiritual force to carefully search. There's actually an underwater passageway beneath these aquatic plants. Duan Lingtian lifted the patch of aquatic plants and noticed that there was actually a passageway that a person could go through, and as he stood here, Duan Lingtian could notice that the speed his spiritual force was being tempered seemed to have increased a great deal. The source of the spirit energy in the Soul Cleanse pool is right inside here. Without any hesitation, Duan Lingtian entered the passageway and dove in. At the beginning, the passageway went downwards, but after a period of time, it changed to head upwards. Duan Lingtian continued to swim upwards. Finally, Duan Lingtian swam out of the passageway. I've finally reached the end. When Duan Lingtian swam out of the passageway, he noticed that he'd appeared in a shallow shoal, and what he saw was a spacious abode. 436 Chapter 437, Spiritual Force Attack. This was a completely sealed abode, and only the underwater passageway led to and from this place. The furnishing within the abode were extremely simple, only a stone table, stone stool, and stone bed. Duan Lingtian arrived before the stone table and blew a mouthful of air, and dust suffused the air. Looks like it has already been a long time since someone came here. When he recalled the objective he came here with, Duan Lingtian's spiritual force extended out. In the end, he sensed a strand of dense spirit energy behind the stone bed. What exactly is it? Under the urging of his curiosity, Duan Lingtian walked forward to take a look. After passing the stone bed, Duan Lingtian saw a gap in the ground, and within the gap was a dark green plant growing tenaciously there. On the plant, a translucent and glittering dark green spirit fruit hung there. Duan Lingtian's pupils constricted. His guess was really correct. The spirit energy within the Soul Cleanse pool was indeed similar to the encounter of the rebirth martial emperor all those years ago. It was also emitted from a spirit fruit and fused into the water. Presently, when Duan Lingtian approached the spirit fruit, he noticed his soul shook. In the next moment, Duan Lingtian felt his mind go blank, and at this instant, it seemed as if something had split open within his soul. My spiritual force has changed. Right at this moment, Duan Lingtian noticed to his delight that his spiritual force that had fallen into a bottleneck had actually broke through the shackles in one go, and smoothly broke through to the void-prying stage. He'd finally broken through. It's all thanks to this. Duan Lingtian's burning gaze converged onto the spirit fruit, and at the same time, he started swiftly searching the memories of the rebirth martial emperor. He was unable to recognize what spirit fruit this was. Finally, within the lifetime worth of memories of the rebirth martial emperor, Duan Lingtian obtained an answer. Nether soul fruit. Duan Lingtian's heartbeat abruptly quickened. The nether soul fruit was similar to the soul transformation fruit. It was a type of spirit fruit that could improve the soul and improve the level of spiritual force. In terms of medicinal strength, it far surpassed the soul transformation fruit. I really never imagined that my luck is so good. Even though I didn't acquire the soul transformation fruit, I acquired an even better nether soul fruit. Duan Lingtian's breathing became hurried. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian started to size up the nether soul fruit seriously. In next to no time, he noticed a problem. This nether soul fruit seems to have not ripened yet. Duan Lingtian was stunned, and as he looked at the wisp of green on the surface of the nether soul fruit, a slight bitter smile unconsciously appeared on the corners of his mouth. However, it ought to be soon, just this little bit of greenness. This nether soul fruit will completely ripen in 3 days at most. Duan Lingtian's gaze abruptly lit up and he was slightly excited in his heart. 3 days, I won't go out first. Duan Lingtian said to himself. As far as he was concerned, 3 days would pass in the blink of an eye. Feng Wudao's group of 3 and the little gold mouse knew of Duan Lingtian's strength, and knew that there surely wouldn't be any danger to him after entering the Soul Clean School. As for the inscription formation, he could use his spiritual force to open it. With a raise of his hand, Duan Ling Tian swept off the dust on the stone bed, then he sat cross-legged atop it and started cultivating. 9 Dragons War Sovereign Technique, Windworm Form. Duan Ling Tian completely immersed his heart and soul in cultivation, and he quickly entered into a state of cultivating. Duan Ling Tian noticed that after his soul transformed, his cultivating speed seemed to have improved slightly compared to before. Looks like even natural talent that is at the limit still needs to rely on a formidable soul to tap into it, to a certain extent. Duan Ling Tian gradually calmed his heart down and continued cultivating. A day's time quickly passed. Within the spacious gorge, behind the ball of cloud and mist that had split open, figures flew out one by one, and they were all the young geniuses of the various cities that had entered the Soul Clean School. In next to no time, the 29 people came out successively. "Where's Big Brother Duan?" Feng Tianwu's beautiful face beneath the veil went slightly pale, and her pretty eyes that were like autumn water contained slight worry mixed within. "Don't worry, young miss. With Brother Duan's ability, he will absolutely be fine." The gray-clothed old man that stood at the side shook his head and smiled, and his words were filled with confidence to Duan Ling Tian. "City Governor Feng, then we'll be taking our leave." The 29 city governors brought along the young geniuses by their sides and successively bid their farewells to Feng Wudao. Feng Wudao nodded indifferently, his gaze never leaving the ball of cloud and mist that had split apart, the entrance to the Soul Clean School. He seemed to be waiting for something and entirely didn't look at the 29 city governors in the eye. The 29 city governors didn't dare be displeased, and they summoned their respectively flying demon beasts before flying off. For a time, only Feng Wudao's group of 3 and the little gold mouse remained within the spacious gorge. "Why hasn't Brother Duan come out yet? The inscription formation atop the Soul Clean School is about to close right now." The old man looked at the cloud and mist that started to converge together and he frowned. Squeak squeak, right at this moment, the little gold mouse that had stayed on Feng Tianwu's hand all the time cried out, then she transformed into a gold light that shot into the wind and clouds that hadn't fully closed, entering the Soul Clean School. "Little gold." Feng Tianwu's face went pale, and before Feng Wudao and the old man could even react, her figure had flashed out, seeming to transform into a ball of flame that fused into the clouds and mist. "Wu, young miss." Feng Wudao and the old man went pale, and they didn't dare hesitate as they both flashed out to follow her. Meanwhile, the clouds and mist converged together and the entrance to the Soul Clean School had completely closed, and it would only open again 3 years from now. "Where's Little Gold? Little Gold, Little Gold." Feng Tianwu wasn't unfamiliar with the Soul Clean School as she'd come here 3 years ago. However, now when she entered the bank of the lake outside the Soul Clean School, her beautiful face concealed beneath the veil was filled with a worried expression. "Little Gold, Little Gold." Feng Tianwu noticed that after the little gold mouse entered, she actually went missing. Feng Tianwu's gaze descended onto the Soul Clean School. Could it be that Little Gold has entered the Soul Clean School? "I promised Big Brother Duan that I would take good care of Little Gold." Suddenly, seeming to have recalled something, Feng Tianwu's beautiful eyes squinted as she leapt into the Soul Clean School. Meanwhile, Feng Wudao and the old man had entered as well. They just happened to see this scene, and they looked at each other and smiled bitterly. However, they weren't worried as the Soul Clean School was just big and there wouldn't be any danger. Especially when the old man's formidable spiritual force extended out, he was easily capable of sensing Feng Tianwu's location and confirming Feng Tianwu's safety. Feng Wudao sized up the dusky clouds and mist in the surroundings of the Soul Clean School, and he lightly frowned as he asked, "Elder Kong, do you have a way to go out?" "No, I don't have the ability to break through this inscription formation." Elder Kong had a serious expression. An inscription formation was an existence that he hadn't encountered yet. This inscription formation can't be said to be difficult or easy, but it's the outcome of a void transformation stage expert after all, and it's far from something I'm able to see through. Perhaps Brother Duan has a way. Is your spiritual force able to find Duan Ling Tian's location? Feng Wudao asked. No, my spiritual force can only touch the upper half of the Soul Clean School. There's no trace of Brother Duan or the little gold mouse. The young miss on the other hand is about to leave the scope of my spiritual force. Let's go down and take a look. As soon as he finished speaking, the old man flew out and entered the Soul Clean School. Within the abode, Duan Ling Tian quietly cultivated, and when he felt the time was about right, he opened his eyes. His face emitted a happy expression, and raised his hand intending to pluck the nether soul fruit. However, when his gaze glanced over, it caused Duan Lingtian's face to go gloomy. He saw that the plant was still there, yet the nether soul fruit atop it had gone missing. Where's the nether soul fruit? Who plucked the nether soul fruit? Duan Lingtian's expression was extremely unsightly, his gaze swiftly and fiercely swept past as he searched within the abode. He could be sure that there was surely someone that seized the nether soul fruit before him. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian noticed the culprit. At the other side of the stone bed, a fluffy gold-colored little mouse lay there in deep sleep. It could be seen that on the corners of the little gold mouse's mouth was a wisp of dark green liquid held there, and traces of profound spirit energy was suffused on the dark green liquid. Little Gold, you actually ate my nether soul fruit. At this moment, Duan Lingtian's mood was complicated, and was difficult to be expressed with words. Once he consumed the nether soul fruit, it could allow his soul to advance a great deal of levels, and even become directly below the soul of an ordinary void initiation stage martial artist. But now, all this had transformed into a dream. Whereas the culprit was exactly the infant jade-eyed heavenly mouse. This little fellow wouldn't be pretending to sleep, right? Didn't I ask you to obediently stay by Tian Wu's side? Why did you come in? Duan Lingtian slightly helplessly grabbed up the little gold mouse, yet noticed that the little gold mouse had indeed fell into an extremely deep state of slumber. Looks like she's digesting the nether soul fruit. Duan Lingtian thought in his heart. If it was any other demon beast that are the nether soul fruit, Duan Lingtian would surely kill it without hesitation. But the demon beast that ate the nether soul fruit was little gold instead, and Duan Lingtian could only endure it. Never mind, I'll just take it as helping you, little fellow. In next to no time, felt at ease and didn't think about it any longer. Presumably, little gold had obtained quite a great deal of benefit from consuming the nether soul fruit. When little gold was strong, her assistance to him would be greater. Good, moved in a cycle. It has been 3 days, I ought to go out. Duan Lingtian brought along the little gold mouse as he dived down the underwater passageway and left the abode. This little gold was actually able to find the underwater passageway. She really has ability, as expected of the descendant of a jade-eyed heavenly mouse. Duan Lingtian couldn't help but sigh emotionally in his heart as he swam within the underwater passageway. According to the memories of Rebirth Martial Emperor, besides their brute force, the jade-eyed heavenly mouse was also skilled in soul attacks, and knew some mysterious soul skills. Human martial artists could only touch the essence of the soul when the martial artist had become a martial emperor, and come into contact with the mysterious soul attacks. On Cloud Continent, soul attacks were ordinarily called spiritual force attacks. Many demon beasts with extraordinary natural talent were able to utilize their spiritual force to attack before becoming a demon emperor, and this included the jade-eyed heavenly mouse. Duan Lingtian thought in his heart. Through the memories of the Rebirth Martial Emperor, he was able to deeply feel how terrifying spiritual force attacks were. A thought was sufficient to injure or even shatter another's soul. What an overbearing ability that was. 437 Chapter 438, Strange Brand. I wonder if Little Gold is able to awaken the inheritance related to the mysterious soul skills after her soul strengthens from the consumption of the nether soul fruit. Through the memories of the Rebirth Martial Emperor, Duan Lingtian found out that once the descendant of a jade-eyed heavenly mouse matured to a certain extent, it would receive the corresponding inheritance of the jade-eyed heavenly mouse family. Amongst it included the mysterious soul skill. A soul skill was a type of ability to launch an attack with the spiritual force, and it's impossible to guard against it. The soul skill of a demon beast is ordinarily executed through an inherited soul brand, and even if a human martial artist knew the method of utilizing the inherited soul skill of a demon beast, the human would be unable to execute it. After Duan Lingtian found out about all this from the memories of the Rebirth Martial Emperor, he couldn't help but sigh. After all, a thought had emerged earlier that once the little gold mouse's memories related to the inherited soul skill was awoken, he would ask the little gold mouse to pass down the soul skill to him. In that way, he would be able to execute soul skills by relying on his spiritual force as well. But unfortunately, his imagination was fine, yet reality was brutal. As his thoughts spun, Duan Lingtian left the underwater passageway and returned to the Soul Cleanse pool. Right when he started swimming upwards and arrived at the upper portion of the Soul Cleanse pool, he sensed an incomparably strong spiritual force sweep over. Elder Kong. Duan Lingtian guessed who the owner of the strong spiritual force was at the first possible moment. When Duan Lingtian leapt out of the Soul Cleanse pool, Feng Wudao, Feng Tianwu, and Elder Kong were already waiting there. Big Brother Duan. At this moment, Feng Tianwu had already removed the veil on her face and revealed her peerless appearance, but at this moment, she seemed to be slightly lost. I'm sorry, I didn't take good care of Little Gold, I don't know where Little Gold has gone. Duan Lingtian was curious earlier as to why Feng Tianwu would reveal such an expression, and not when he heard what she said, he couldn't help but shake his head and smile. The little fellow is here. Duan Lingtian stretched his hand out to grab the little gold mouse. Earlier, while he swam his way up, he'd fastened the little gold mouse that had fallen into a deep slumber on the belt behind him. Little Gold. Feng Tianwu saw the little gold mouse and her peerlessly beautiful appearance recovered its spirits. But when she saw the little gold mouse wasn't moving at all, she had a worried expression. Big Brother Duan, what's wrong with Little Gold? She's fine, she'd only sleeping. Duan Lingtian slightly gnashed his teeth with hatred when he recalled the reason the little gold mouse had fallen asleep. City Governor, Elder Kong, why are the two of you here? The inscription formation outside the Soul Clean's pool closing up was within Duan Lingtian's expectations. The appearance of the little gold mouse had already exceeded his expectations, and Feng Wudao's group of 3 being within the Soul Clean's pool exceeded his expectations even more. It's because Wu saw the little gold mouse run in and followed it in. I and Elder Kong were worried for her, so we follow her in as well. You don't know anxious this little girl was when she noticed that she'd lost any trace of this little gold mouse. As Feng Wudao spoke, he glanced deeply at Duan Lingtian. Tian Wu. Duan Lingtian looked at Feng Tianwu and his heart lightly trembled, and his face revealed a slight smile. I'm sorry for making you worry. Big Brother Duan, it's all right as long as you and Little Gold are fine. Feng Tianwu shook her head, and she revealed a smile that could overturn every living being. Right, Big Brother Duan, where did you and Little Gold go? I, my father, and Grandpa Kong searched the entire Soul Clean's pool but didn't notice a trace of either of you. Feng Wudao and Elder Kong looked at Duan Lingtian with tacit understanding as well. Duan Lingtian slowly said, there's a concealed underwater passageway beneath the Soul Clean's pool, and it leads to a fully sealed abode. I spent these 2 days within that abode. There seems to have been someone who once stayed within that abode, but it was covered in dust. According to my estimations, the owner of that abode is very likely the inscription master that placed the inscription formation over the Soul Clean's pool. As soon as Duan Lingtian finished speaking, both Feng Wudao and Elder Kong were moved. Brother Duan, you said there's an underwater passageway beneath the Soul Clean's pool that leads to the abode of the inscription master that left behind this inscription formation. Elder Kong looked at Duan Lingtian with an excited expression. As an inscription master, he was naturally able to discern the profundity of the inscription formation that enveloped the Soul Clean's pool. 9 inscriptions interconnected and complementing each other was something only an inscription master with a soul at the void transformation stage was able to set up. Whereas now, the abode of that inscription master was right before his eyes. It's only my guess and it might not actually be him. Duan Lingtian naturally was able to guess the reason Elder Kong was excited. You spent these 2 days within the abode and ought to have discovered something, right? Feng Wudao looked at Duan Lingtian with a burning gaze. It can be considered like that. Duan Lingtian smiled bitterly, and it attracted the attention of Feng Wudao and Elder Kong. Duan Lingtian glanced helplessly at the little gold mouse in his hand when faced with the stares of the 3 people, and said slowly, 3 days ago, after I entered the Soul Clean's pool, I went to search for the source of the spirit energy in the Soul Clean's pool. In the end, I discovered the underwater passageway. Later on, I entered into the abode and discovered a nether soul fruit within it. Nether soul fruit? Feng Tianwu had no reaction to what Duan Lingtian said, but Feng Wudao and Elder Kong's faces were instantly filled with shock. Especially Elder Kong. An inscription master at his level possessed a formidable soul, and even a soul transformation fruit had an extremely limited assistance to improving his soul. However, the nether soul fruit was a valuable spirit fruit that transcended the soul transformation fruit. Even if he consumed it, it would at least be able to improve his soul by 2 to 3 levels. You consumed the nether soul fruit. Elder Kong stared blankly at Duan Lingtian, a bright light flashed within his muddy eyes, and his eyes were filled with envy. Subsequently, Feng Tianwu found out about the preciousness of the nether soul fruit from Feng Wudao, and she looked at Duan Lingtian as she said with a light smile, "Congratulations Big Brother Duan. I didn't consume the nether soul fruit." Duan Lingtian shook his head, and at the same time, he couldn't help but glare at the little gold mouse that was in deep sleep in his hand. Feng Wudao's group of 3 looked at Duan Lingtian with a puzzled expression. 3 days ago, I discovered the nether soul fruit. Duan Lingtian sighed and spoke of the sequence of events. All this wasn't a secret. After they finished listening to Duan Lingtian, the gazes of Feng Wudao's group of 3 simultaneously descended onto the little gold mouse in Duan Lingtian's hand, and their gaze were filled with astonishment. A reckless waste of heaven's gifts. A reckless waste of heaven's gifts. Feng Wudao couldn't help but shake his head and sigh with emotion. If I knew earlier that this little fellow would steal your fortuitous encounters, I ought to have kept an eye on her since the beginning and not let her charge in. Big brother Duan, I'm sorry. It's I who didn't look after little gold properly and caused her to eat the spirit fruit you wanted to consume. Feng Tianwu had an apologetic expression, and she seemed delicate and touching with tears that were about to flow down. There's no harm. Duan Lingtian smiled indifferently, then rubbed the little gold mouse in his hand. Little gold consuming the nether soul fruit can be considered to be a fortune of hers. Brother Duan is really magnanimous, it's truly admirable, Elder Kong couldn't but say, then his gaze lit up. Brother Duan. Elder Kong, if you're interested in the abode that seems to be left behind by the inscription master, then I'll take you over to have a look. Before Elder Kong could finish, Duan Lingtian interrupted him, then placed the little gold mouse at the side before his body flashed, once again entering the soul cleanse pool. This time, not only Elder Kong followed, even Feng Wudao and Feng Tianwu followed as well. This underwater passageway is actually concealed beneath the aquatic plants, no wonder I didn't notice it at all. When I searched with my spiritual force earlier, I intentionally avoided these aquatic plants, but I never imagined that the thing I didn't care about the most actually concealed something. When he saw Duan Lingtian pull open the aquatic plants and enter the underwater passageway, Elder Kong sent a voice transmission to Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian's brows raised. It was because he was careful that day, otherwise, he would have missed this underwater passageway like Elder Kong. Finally, under Duan Lingtian's lead, Elder Kong, Feng Wudao, and Feng Tianwu arrived within the abode. At the beginning, Duan Lingtian felt that Elder Kong was doing something useless. But unexpectedly, Brother Duan, come and look quickly. Elder Kong's exclamation in surprise entered into Duan Lingtian's ears, and at the same time, it alerted both Feng Wudao and Feng Tianwu. The 3 of them walked over. They saw the along with Elder Kong raising his hand to pat the walls on the side of the abode, and as the dust on the walls fell down, dense words appeared before their eyes. This is, experience in the art of inscriptions. Duan Lingtian took a rough look and discerned what was recorded in the words on the wall, and it was the lifetime worth of experience left behind by an inscription master. Looks like it's exactly as Brother Duan guessed. This abode was left behind by the great inscription master that set up the inscription formation over the soul cleanse pool. This great inscription master was a void transformation stage expert. Elder Kong looked at the words on the wall and he seemed as if he'd lost his soul as he muttered. The words on the wall were all the lifetime worth of experience that the void transformation stage inscription master had left behind, and to an inscription master, it was a supreme treasure. But to Duan Lingtian, it wasn't worth mentioning. The inscription experiences left behind by that inscription master is completely unable to compare with the inscription experiences left behind by the rebirth martial emperor. These inscription experiences might be useful to Elder Kong, but they're of no use to me. Duan Lingtian only took a few glances at the inscription experiences on the wall before turning around from lack of interest, and he started examining the surroundings. Earlier, he really didn't notice those words on the wall. There are more here. Feng Tianwu's voice sounded out, and only now did Duan Lingtian notice that the wall on the other side was similarly fully inscribed with dense words. What's this? Originally, Duan Lingtian similarly didn't have the slightest interest towards the words on the wall on the other side, but Feng Tianwu's low exclaim still attracted his attention. Duan Lingtian walked over. Big brother Duan, look at this, is this an inscription? Feng Tianwu pointed at a part of the wall as she said to Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian glanced over. On the wall, besides the portion of dense words related to the experiences in the Tao of inscriptions, there was a strange brand behind a layer of light dust. This brand didn't seem as if it was inscribed onto the wall. A wisp of gold light seemed to be hidden behind the dust. It's slightly likened inscriptions, but seems not to be. Under his curiosity, Duan Lingtian stretched out his hand, intending to wipe off the dust on the brand. 438 Chapter 439, Soul Brand. Right when Duan Ling Tian stretched out his hand to wipe the dust on the stranger brand, when his palm touched the strange brand. Whoosh! Something flashed before Duan Ling Tian's eyes. It was the strange brand that had completely manifested itself, and as suddenly exploded out with gold lights, like it instantly transformed into a scorching sun that was incomparably dazzling. Subsequently, this small scorching sun gradually dimmed out. Instantly, Duan Ling Tian felt an extremely strange energy sweep out from the wall and pour into his palm with a speed so swift that it caused him to be terrified. At the same time that Duan Ling Tian's expression went grim, that strand of extremely strange energy directly swept towards his soul. *T. Duan Ling Tian experienced a wave of panic in his heart. The soul was the foundation of a person. If the soul was destroyed, then it would also mean the end of the person's life, and only a lifeless shell would remain. Without any hesitation, spiritual force swept out within Duan Ling Tian's soul, attempting to stop the extremely strange energy. However, this energy instead completely disregarded Duan Ling Tian's spiritual force, charging violently all the way as it swept towards Duan Ling Tian's soul, seeming as if it wouldn't stop until it destroyed Duan Ling Tian's soul. Bang! At the instant the extremely strange energy collided onto his soul, despair arose in Duan Ling Tian's heart. Am I going to die? In the next moment, his soul shook, causing Duan Ling Tian to feel a wave of dizziness. I didn't die. When Duan Ling Tian recovered his senses, he noticed that his consciousness was still intact, and his soul wasn't destroyed. Big brother Duan, what happened earlier? Why is that inscription gone? A wave of a pleasing and graceful voice entered into Duan Ling Tian's ears, pulling Duan Ling Tian back from his agitated state of mind. Duan Ling Tian looked once again at the wall before him, and he noticed that the gold-colored strange brand had vanished, as if it had never appeared in the first place. When he recalled the incident from before, Duan Ling Tian asked curiously. Tian Wu, you didn't see anything earlier? No. Feng Tian Wu shook her head. I saw big brother Duan wiping the dust off the gold-colored inscription, then the inscription vanished. Could it be that the inscriptions was painted on the wall? And big brother Duan wiped it off with the dust? Perhaps. At the same time that he nodded, Duan Ling Tian's mind surged. He didn't have the slightest clue what exactly that gold-colored strange brand was, and it was because of this that he realized that the brand wasn't simple. Tian Wu said she didn't see anything. In other words, the bright light that was like a scorching sun emitted by the strange brand earlier, only I was able to see that scene, Duan Ling Tian thought in his heart. Then he looked at Feng Wudao and Elder Kong who were at the other side. Feng Wudao and Elder Kong were obviously not alarmed by it. What exactly is that brand? Duan Ling Tian caught his breath, then fused his spiritual force into his soul and he started to search. In the end, he noticed that there seemed to be something within his soul. Although the current strength of his spiritual force was insufficient to replace his eyes, and he was unable to see what was in his soul. But his spiritual force still told him that his soul had become different from before. This feeling, Duan Ling Tian closed his eyes and used his spiritual force to sense the changes in his soul to the best of his spiritual force's ability. In the end, Duan Ling Tian obtained an answer. According to the memories of the rebirth martial emperor, a similar thing would only appear in the souls of those demon beasts that possessed extraordinary natural talent. This thing seemed to be slightly similar to the soul brand in the souls of those demon beasts. Soul brand. Some demon beasts with extraordinary natural talent were able to awaken their own soul brand before becoming a demon emperor, and awaken the inherited memories related to soul skill. These demons beasts relied on the soul brand to be able to utilize soul attack, in other words spiritual force attacks in advance. Whereas as a jade-eyed heavenly mouse, Little Gold was one of these demon beasts with extraordinary natural talent. But, according to the memories of the rebirth martial emperor, it was impossible for soul brands to appear in humans. Human martial artists were only able to achieve elementary mastery of the soul and control their spiritual force to battle an enemy once their cultivations broke through to the martial emperor stage. Moreover, it wasn't every human martial artist that was able to easily control spiritual force in combat, and more than 80% of human martial artists that were able to easily control spiritual force in combat were inscription masters. The other portion of people able to easily control their spiritual force in combat were existences that innately possessed souls that were stronger than ordinary human martial artists. Ordinary human martial emperors had to put in hard work that was much more than the two types of people before to control their spiritual force in combat. After all, their starting point was far inferior to the other two types of people. Moreover, even if they devoted themselves to study spiritual force attacks, it would be difficult for these type of human martial emperor to have any great accomplishments. The memories of the rebirth martial emperor flashed within Duan Lingtian's mind. But, why would a thing similar to a soul brand appear within my soul? Duan Lingtian was unable to wrap his head around it. Could it be that it's related to the strange brand that appeared on the wall earlier? Duan Lingtian couldn't help but recall this. At the same time, for the sake of getting to the bottom of it, Duan Lingtian's spiritual force coiled around the additional existence in his soul that seemed to be a soul brand. His spiritual force swept out, and pierced into it. In practically an instant, Duan Lingtian felt his soul tremble, then an incomparably hollow voice sounded out within his mind. Fortunate one of the younger generation, when you hear these words of mine, you ought to have already acquired the soul brand I left behind. This unfamiliar voice caused Duan Lingtian to be as if struck by lightning. At this moment, Duan Lingtian vaguely guessed who the owner of the voice was. I'm an inscription master from the foreign lands, yet I sought different things than ordinary inscription masters. I devoted all the energy in my life to the study of soul brands. Those demon beasts didn't have to break through to become a demon emperor before being able to utilize spiritual force in combat through their soul brands, and it frequently caused our human martial artists to be unable to guard against it. My studies were because I wanted to allow human martial artists to be able to possess soul brands that belong to themselves, but unfortunately the facts prove that I was too naive. I walked through more than half of Cloud Continent in my life, and when I arrived here, I was already old, so what if I was at the void transformation stage? After 100 years, I still have to transform into a pill for Earth in the end, and return to the heaven and the earth. Old people are always more long-winded. I hope you don't mind. In this lifetime of mine, although I didn't successfully research a soul brand to allow human martial artists to execute spiritual force attacks before breaking through to the martial emperor, I couldn't be considered to have had no results. I used the seed of the nether soul fruit as the catalyst, then relied on my attainments in the Tao of inscriptions in this lifetime, and I was finally able to leave behind a special soul brand. Or in other words, the soul brand you've acquired now. These words of mine were left behind within the soul brand using a void transmission inscription. When I left behind this soul brand, my lifespan was at its end and I'd decided to leave, to go find a calm and peaceful place to live the remainder of my life. Although this soul brand isn't able to allow you to execute spiritual force attacks that are able to destroy another's soul, according to my estimations, it ought to be able to help you utilize some special spiritual force abilities. As for how exactly, you'll have to rely on yourself to find out. Besides that, since you're able to fuse with the soul brand I left behind, I presume there's something special about your spiritual force, and you're almost surely an inscription master. I've left behind my lifetime worth of experience in the Tao of inscriptions on the walls of this abode, and I hope it's able to help you. The voice completely went out at this point, passing into silence. Duan Lingtian returned to his sense, and his pupils constricted as shock emerged within his heart. This inscription master is truly amazing. Duan Lingtian took a deep breath. He who'd fused with the memories of the rebirth martial emperor deeply knew what the deeds of this inscription master meant. Even during the time of the rebirth martial emperor, although he was extremely interested towards the soul brand of those demon beasts with extraordinary natural talent, he'd completely given up after conducting research for a few years. Because, the rebirth martial emperor felt that continuing the research was only doing something of no use. Moreover, the rebirth martial emperor of that time completely didn't need a soul brand, so he didn't care about it much. As an expert at the martial emperor stage and a formidable inscription master, so long as he condensed his spiritual force and swept it out, then there wasn't a single martial emperor in Cloud Continent that was able to block his spiritual force attack without being injured. Compared to the rebirth martial emperor, this inscription master was much more persistent. He spent his entire lifetime and in the end, he'd researched a type of soul brand after all. The shock in Duan Lingtian's heart gradually calmed down. After it calmed down, Duan Lingtian's heart jerked. I nearly forgot something. According to the words left behind by that inscription master, he himself seems to not know what functions that soul brand that has fused into my soul now had, right? Then wouldn't I have become his lab rat? Suddenly, Duan Lingtian realized that unknowingly, he seemed to have become the test subject of that inscription master. I hope that there's no problem with the soul brand left behind by that inscription master, otherwise, I would really be played to death by him. Duan Lingtian couldn't help but laugh bitterly in his heart. According to the inscription master, the soul brand within my soul is unable to directly utilize my spiritual force to battle an enemy. Looks like I have to research it for some time to find out exactly what use this soul brand has. Duan Lingtian thought in his heart. At the same time, he recalled another thing the inscription master mentioned earlier. According to that inscription master, the soul brand that has fused into my soul seems to be created from inscriptions combined with the seed of a nether soul fruit as the catalyst. A seed of a nether soul fruit, he really recklessly wasted God's gifts. Looks like the nether soul fruit that grew within this abode was very likely grown from the seed that was left here that time. Duan Lingtian was suddenly enlightened about many things now, and he completely understood them. But unfortunately, the plant grown from a nether soul fruit seed is only able to develop a single nether soul fruit in its lifetime. Otherwise, I could consider moving this nether soul fruit plant to another place. Duan Lingtian sighed to himself. 439 Chapter 440, Breaking Out from the Formation. The changes in Duan Lingtian's expression were completely noticed by Feng Tianwu. But she entirely didn't know exactly what had happened, and she could only silently stand there. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian completely returned to his senses. Only now did he notice that Elder Kong was still seriously inspecting the lifetime worth of experience in the Tao of inscriptions left behind by that inscription master. These experiences in inscriptions are completely useless to me, however, it could be considered to have helped Elder Kong. Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled. After he realized that Elder Kong would still require a period of time before being able to completely look through the experiences in the art of inscription on the walls, Duan Lingtian directly sat cross-legged on the stone bed and completely immersed himself into cultivation after letting Feng Tianwu know he would be cultivating. 9 Dragons War Sovereign Technique, Windworm Form. The 2-year agreement with that zither young master was impending, and Duan Lingtian didn't dare slack in the slightest. Duan Lingtian's action were noticed by Feng Wudao and he couldn't help but nod in satisfaction. A genius didn't completely rely on natural talent and fortune, and relied even more on the genius's own hard work. For example, if a peerless genius didn't have the mind to cultivate and only cared about enjoying himself, then the genius was bound to be unable to attain great achievements, and even greater natural talent was of no use. In next to no time, Feng Wudao and Feng Tianwu sat on the stone bed and closed their eyes to cultivate. The stone bed was extremely large, and it didn't seem crowded in the slightest with 3 people sitting cross-legged on it. Duan Lingtian completely forgot the time when he was completely immersed in his cultivation. He only knew to ceaselessly improve the origin energy in his body, and ceaselessly improve his cultivation. He only heaved a sigh of relief and opened his eyes when his cultivation arrived at the breakthrough point between the 5th level of the nascent soul stage and the 6th level of the nascent soul stage. City Governor, Elder Kong, Tianwu. Only now did Duan Lingtian notice that the 3 of them were sitting at the stone table in the abode and were chatting in low voices. All of them revealed smiles on their faces when they noticed Duan Lingtian had awoken. Especially Feng Tianwu, her pair of eyes that were like autumn water emitted traces of happiness that was difficult to notice. Big brother Duan, you've awoken. Feng Tianwu stood up and lightly smiled as she looked at Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian nodded, and he couldn't help but ask when he noticed the wave of hunger that came from his stomach. How long did I cultivate this time? 1.5 months, said Feng Tianwu. 1.5 months, Duan Lingtian's brows raised. In other words, there was only another 4.5 months of time remaining before the 2-year agreement with zither young master. Elder Kong, you've finished looking through it. Duan Lingtian glanced at the walls surrounding the abode, then looked at the gray-clothed old man. Yes, the old man nodded with a smile, and his face was glowing. Obviously, his gains were quite substantial. Brother Duan, are you not going to take a look? These experiences in the art of inscriptions are of no help to me. Duan Lingtian shook his head. The old man came to a sudden understanding. If he had no knowledge of Duan Lingtian's attainments in the Tao of inscriptions, he might have felt that the words Duan Lingtian spoke were too arrogant. Looks like the attainments in the Tao of inscription of that master of Brother Duan's that is from the foreign lands surpasses the owner of this abode, that great inscription master that had broken through to the void transformation stage. Now, only shock remained in his heart. Since it's like this, then let's leave, Feng Wudao said slowly. Duan Lingtian, Elder Kong, and Feng Tianwu had no objections. In next to no time, their group of 4 had left the Soul Clean School. Little Gold hasn't awoken yet. Feng Tianwu carried up the little gold mouse in her arms, and she was slightly surprised when she noticed the little gold mouse was still sound asleep. After all, 1.5 months had passed by now. She'll probably still need to sleep for a period of time. Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled. He originally wanted to go break open the inscription formation, but when he noticed Elder Kong seemed to have the intention to do it, he withdrew his spiritual force that had stretched out and allowed Elder Kong to do it. But, after a long time, Elder Kong's sweat flowed down like the rain, yet he was still unable to break open the inscription formation. Elder Kong, are you still unable? Feng Wudao was slightly astonished. Didn't Elder Kong master all the lifetime worth of experiences in the Tao of inscriptions that was left behind by that inscription master? Why is he unable to even break open the inscription formation of that person? Elder Kong was slightly embarrassed when he heard this. I might have to practice for a while first. Allow me. Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled. His spiritual force swept out, and relying on the memories of the rebirth martial emperor, he was able to easily see through the core of this inscription formation. Although Duan Lingtian's spiritual force was far inferior to Elder Kong, he'd found the core of the inscription formation and was able to easily break open the inscription formation. Whoosh! The dusky clouds and mist before him roiled, and the inscription formation opened once again. Duan Lingtian's group of 4 flew out, and along with Duan Lingtian's spiritual force extending out and entering the core once again, the inscription formation was closed up once more. Not only that, he even changed the configuration of the inscription formation that made it open once every 3 years. In the future, this soul cleanse pool won't be open to the public anymore. Duan Lingtian said to Feng Wudao and the others. The 3 of them nodded as they didn't feel that Duan Lingtian's actions were going too far. After all, the nether soul fruit had been eaten by the little gold mouse, and the soul cleanse pool wouldn't give birth to any more spirit energy in the future. Even if the opening configuration of the inscription formation wasn't changed by Duan Lingtian, it was impossible for anyone to obtain any benefit from the soul cleanse pool in the future. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian's group of 4 once again ascended the flying demon beast and returned to Phoenix Nest City. Phoenix Nest City was peaceful, and it was no different from when they left. This time, after returning to the city governor's estate for 3 days, Duan Lingtian intended to bid his farewells and leave. Big brother Duan, you're leaving so soon. Feng Tianwu's beautiful face was filled with reluctance. All good things must come to an end, moreover, I have some things to do. I'll surely come see you in the future. Duan Lingtian lightly smiled as he spoke. Feng Tianwu lightly nodded as she was able to perceive that Duan Lingtian was resolute on leaving. Lingtian, remember the words you've spoken. Feng Wudao looked at Duan Lingtian and said via voice transmission. You can be at ease, city governor. I, Duan Lingtian, always keep my promises, and I would absolutely not go back against my word, so long as I've really awoken a water spirit body or ice spirit body one day in the future, then I'll marry Tianwu and save her life. Duan Lingtian nodded to Feng Wudao as he spoke via voice transmission. At that time, I'll come to Phoenix Nest City again. There's no need. Feng Wudao's voice transmission entered into Duan Lingtian's ears, and it caused him to be unable to help himself from being stunned. There's no need, city governor, you. What I mean is, you don't have to come to Phoenix Nest City in the future. After a period of time, we'll return to where we came from. In the future, if you want to find us, then go to the capital of the Darken Dynasty. You only have to inquire about the Feng clan when you arrive at the capital. Feng Wudao's voice transmission sounded out once again, and allowed Duan Lingtian to come to a sudden understanding. Feng clan. Presumably, it was the clan that Feng Wudao and the others were from. He'd committed it to memory. Big brother Duan, you haven't told us where you're from. Feng Tianwu looked at Duan Lingtian as she asked. What, you're afraid I'll go missing? Duan Lingtian joked, causing the heavy atmosphere in the scene to ease up slightly. I'm from the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom that's south of Darkstone Empire. Presently, I've joined the leaders amongst the 5 great sects of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, the 7-Star Sword Sect. If nothing unexpected happens, then I ought to be in the 7-Star Sword Sect for the next few years. 7-Star Sword Sect. Feng Tianwu nodded and silently committed it to memory. All right, I ought to leave. Elder Kong, farewell. Duan Lingtian bid his farewells to Elder Kong before leaving the city governor's estate. After Duan Lingtian left. All right, Wu, he's already left. Feng Wudao glanced at his daughter who still had her head raised as she looked into the distance, and he shook his head. He knew clearly in his heart that the heart of his daughter had already gone off with that kid, Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian, you're really something. Since a young age, this daughter of mine possessed peerless natural talent and was extremely prideful, but you've actually captured her heart so quickly. Even though this made him feel displeased, he had to admit it. Feng Tianwu withdrew her gaze, and her beautiful face was filled with a sense of loss. The atmosphere became depressed once again. Outside Phoenix Nest City. Go! A tall horse that seemed as if it was tainted with blood flashed out, and a violet-clothed young man sat on it. It was exactly Duan Lingtian who'd just left Phoenix Nest City. I forgot little Gold is still in deep slumber. I can only temporarily hurry on the journey with a Fergana horse. Duan Lingtian had a bitter smile on his face. He only thought of this after he left the city governor's estate. Although he could ask for a flying beast from Feng Wudao if he returned to the city governor's estate now, he dispelled this thought in the end. Since he wasn't in a hurry for time, he wouldn't go trouble another. He didn't want to owe Feng Wudao a favor. Duan Lingtian spurred his horse to swift gallop forward, heading all the way south. Pressing forward day and night and enduring the hardships of an arduous journey. He seemed as if he completely didn't have a destination. 4.5 months, I'll randomly go about during this period of time and temper myself. Duan Lingtian decided in his heart. 7-star sword sect, Dubi Peak. In a spacious palace that stood on the mountainside of Dubi Peak like a monster that lay dormant there. Big Brother Lei, Big Brother Lei, an urgent voice sounded out within the palace. A green-clothed youth around the age of 17 or 18 pushed open the door and entered. Pooh! The blue-clothed young man who sat on the bed in cultivation was alarmed by this, and the sudden stimulation made his lifeblood to circulate in the opposite direction, causing him to forcefully spit out a mouthful of blood. The blue-clothed young man opened his eyes, and a cold light that was difficult to notice flashed within before quickly being restrained, and he forced out a trace of a smile as he looked at the green-clothed youth that had entered. Little brother K, is there something that you're urgently looking for me for? He knew clearly in his heart that although this green-clothed youth before him was his cousin brother, he was far from being able to compare with the youth's status. Even to the extent that it was all thanks to this cousin brother that he was able to cultivate here. After all, the palace he was in now was the cultivation location of one of the 2 great guardian elders of the 7-star sword sect, Elder Ming. Elder Ming was the great-grandfather of his cousin brother's family. Big Brother Lei, look at this. The green-clothed youth looked at the blue-clothed young man and casually withdrew a small booklet and flipped it to the middle before passing it over. These words. The blue-clothed young man looked over. At the middle page of the small booklet were extremely eye-piercing words. One must first castrate one's self if there is desire to cultivate the second half. Without castration, it's difficult to succeed in the divine cultivation method. Once castrated, rebirth shall be achieved.